will happen to me. There'll be no bodily harm on myself or my kids in the back seat. Like, just please don't do that, like, especially when it's flooding. But the flooding situation in Philadelphia is bad. Philadelphia is also a major city that's within the climate change line of fire. Philadelphia is a city that's within the climate crisis line of fire. We're in the high impact zone. We're one of those big cities that over the next 20, 30 years, we will be experiencing severe flooding. And many folks who listen to WURD, who listen to shows like Reality Check, particularly our core black listeners out there, you should know that flooding is not just a white people's problem. It is not just a polar bear's problem. It is not just a problem for some of those environmental activists that you see roaming around trying to get you to sign petitions on college campuses. No, it is very much a black people's problem, particularly when you look at a place like Philadelphia and you look at recent data. First of all, the risk of flooding above 4 feet, what's called the multi-year risk of flooding above 4 feet, increases substantially in Philadelphia between 2020, which is next year, and also the year 2040. By the time we get to 2040, there will be a 78% chance of back-to-back years of flooding of 4 feet or more, which is once you flood above 4 feet, you're flooding above sea level. By the time we get to 2050, then 2060, it's just from 2060 all the way to 2080, 2100, it's just 100% chance. Like, it's just flooding will become a fact of life. It will become a constant in Philadelphia. Already between 2005, 2014, let me just show you how bad the flooding's been getting in Philadelphia and in the southeastern PA region. And oh, by the way, too, we had the governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, just announced a state of emergency for most of the South Jersey region because of the flooding. So that's part of the Philadelphia area. But let me just tell you how bad it is, right? So between 1995 to 2004, there were about 24 days of climate-linked or climate change-linked sea level rise or flood days in Philadelphia between 1995 to 2004. Actually, there were more days, 29 days, that would have occurred anyway, 29 days of flooding between 1995 and 2004 that would have occurred anyway just because we're a big city next to a big river or sandwiched between a couple of major rivers or major tributaries, right? Get to 2005 to 2014, now there were 83 days of floods that were linked to climate change in just 37 days that would have happened anyway, right? So it's getting worse, and we don't have the most recent 10-year period data just yet, but I'm sure it's going to be worse. Now, who's the most affected by this flooding? And that's something I would like to get into a conversation about today. We're going to have conversations about many other topics here on Reality Check later today. In fact, we'll have Letitia Beecham. She's going to be coming on during the 5 o'clock hour. We're going to talk about the situation that's happening right now with the Democratic primary as that very crowded Democratic primary field is preparing for the debates. Obviously, folks are watching the news and they're saying Joe Biden's dealing with some issues and is under fire on social media and then the headlines for comments that he's made as far as his relationship, his interface with openly segregationist senators back in the 70s and even in the 80s. And also, once again, we're resurrecting that conversation about the role that Senator Biden played in passage of the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill. So obviously we'll be talking about that. We also have Santita Jackson joining us, who's host of her new show, The Santita Jackson Show, in Chicago on WCPT. And I was actually on that show this morning, had a fantastic time with Santita Jackson. I was supposed to be there for just like 45 minutes. We ended up having an hour and a half conversation. She's got some great listeners, great folks who were calling in. She's coming on a little bit later coming on a little bit later on today. Santita Jackson, also daughter of the famed Reverend Jesse Jackson, as well. Many of you know her as that, and she also helps produce her father's weekly show and helps him out with a number of activist activities as well. But anyway, we're going to be getting into that conversation with her as well about reparations. We had that big hearing on Capitol Hill, but it really wasn't a big hearing. Like, not a lot of people showed up. I mean, it was a lot of audience in the room. It wasn't a whole lot of members of Congress showed up, so it wasn't that. I don't know if you can really call it that much of a big hearing. I mean, it was televised quite a bit, and there was quite a bit of footage that folks were seeing that was circulating throughout social media. But we'll be talking about reparations and what reparations or that conversation looks like heading into 2020. But this flooding issue is very serious for Philly, and I really want to get a sense of, let's over the next few days, if we can. And this is important. I'm going to tell you in a minute why this is important for a couple of reasons. Let me know, how much of an impact is flooding having on you in Philly, right? So is this becoming a real big burden for you? And not just in terms of your daily commute, whether you're commuting back and forth from work, not just in terms of you walking past, trash littered, trash strewn, sewage openings, right? Troy was we were in here, half joking about how folks need to stop throwing trash on the streets and clogging up gutters or sewage lines with their trash, because that's also creating a flooding mess in Philadelphia. So partly, a lot of Philly's flooding is caused by climate crisis, climate change, but it's also caused by people just being trifling and putting their, Philadelphia is still has this reputation of being a fairly filthy town. Like, people aren't doing respectable things with their trash, like putting it in the trash can, or like if they're in a car, like wait till you get home, fam, and put your trash in your personal trash can. That's how mad I am about this issue. So like your trash is hampering the city's inability hampering the city's ability, to manage the flooding situation in Philly, because the trash is clogging up all the various gutters that need to collect water, that need to help rainwaters flow out into the river. Well, and not only that, but your trash is ending up in the Delaware and the Schuylkill. So it's like, please, Philly, get your trash problem under control. But anyway, black populations or black communities in Philly are the hardest hit and will continue to be the hardest hit by flooding in Philadelphia in perpetuity. In fact, the largest population in Philadelphia that's living below 4 feet or 4 foot sea level is the African American population in Philadelphia, is the black population in Philadelphia. So black neighborhoods in Philadelphia are the most vulnerable to flooding, particularly residential flooding or street flooding. So this has become a problem. I'm not sure how the city is handling it. It hasn't been much talk about it. People are just kind of going about their daily business, but it's going to get worse. On average, I think Philadelphia gets about 45, maybe about 40 inches of rain on average a year. We should be well surpassing that as we get into the summer. So that's a problem. And obviously, some places may end up becoming permanently flooded, and some people should expect over time to get displaced. So that's something that we're looking at right now. There are neighborhoods throughout, especially lower North Philadelphia, that are also very vulnerable, or any neighborhoods that are below sea level. So if you're below sea level, you have a problem. And the only thing the city's doing right now is just opening up more natural gas plants and creating a situation where we have more methane that's floating in the air, and it's going to make the city hotter. And then you have a much hotter city, an urban heat island, and then that's aggravating the situation as far as the flooding, because that global warming soup is what's triggering all of this rain, all of this flooding that we're going through. So city council and the mayor's response to all this flooding is, let's just let's put more toxic gases into the air. Let's open up more natural gas plants. While in places like LA, the mayor out there is actually, he's in the process of shutting down his natural, they're going to shut down all of they have about 3 natural gas plants that are operated for the LA metro area, for Los Angeles. About 4 million people live in Los Angeles. Now, the one luxury they have is that those are publicly owned. Those are government owned natural gas plants, but still, like, he's got the right strategy in mind. He's not talking about using natural gas. He's like, hey, we're going to convert within about 5 years. We're going to start going 100% renewable energy. Kenny's just talking about, yeah, we'll just get there by 2050. But in the meantime, we'll use a bunch of natural gas. How are you going to get to being like to your renewable energy target if now you're building whole brand new natural gas infrastructure? I don't get it. But you know that it's not just the flooding, but it's also the asthma, as well as the cancer rates in the area are also going to increase as a result of that decision as well. Let me go to Lloyd in Hamilton, who's calling in for a reality check. Lloyd, what's good? Lloyd, can you hear us? Hello.
Hello?
Hello. How are you doing, Lloyd?
Yeah, everything's great, man. On your end, man, and I just wanted to, salute you, man, as far as all the information that you do bring from your radio station, and not just you, all the other hosts as well.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you,
man. It's just a beautiful thing, man. Like, a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things in my life, so right now I'm paying attention. And the famous poet Maya Angelou said, "Stop being ignorant of being ignorant. It became aware of being aware."
Mm-hmm.
That's the line I got out of "Why the Cage Birds Sing."
That's right.
And as far as the flooding and like the atmosphere, these are very important things. I don't have that much information on it, but it's definitely something that I will love to read in further, just to be more aware, because say a flood does break out in this area. I'm in Hamilton, right next to Trent, which is like maybe 40 minutes away from Philly. I guess I'm not for certain, but we'll all be in the same kind of boat, and I don't even know how to operate a boat. I wouldn't know the nearest place or even what to do, because I don't have those type of survival tactics, but I do know that I am aware. I will definitely be trying to climb a tree or something like that, but other than that, man, I just wanted to touch bases, man, and was calling. I was coming through the storm, as it was going down. This is like the 3rd or 4th day in a row where I have got caught in this traffic, and the storm coming down, man, where you basically have to pull over and you're at the mercy of nature. So, like I said, man, I appreciate it. But the one thing I did want to touch on calling, man, I had seen that one of the major networks had picked up on Philly's the police officer situation as far as those negative posts on the social media.
On Facebook, right.
Yeah, and I mean, that was kind of like an eye-opener, man. You guys are the first ones I heard anything of that. So, of the radio station for make that happen, because what he said, when you're watching those major networks, and is what's going on with the commander-in-chief and like the big government, those same stories over, they always leave out what's going on in a lot of communities. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially like the urban neighborhoods, and I really appreciate that. But the last thing I want to say, as far as everything is going on, man, I've been feeling very helpless and hopeless. But see, being that I have a program that I'm working now, and I know I have choices, and those choices are not for me to definitely use or drink. I understand.
Hey, Lloyd, we're going to have to let you go because we got a little bit of interference on your phone, and it was such a good conversation. You were actually making some really good points, and Lloyd's right. Like that issue regarding racist and sensitive, bigoted posts on Facebook and on various social media platforms by a number of current and former Philadelphia police officers, we wouldn't have seen this issue highlighted as much if you didn't have a media institution like WURD highlighting and constantly talking about that issue. You know, obviously Solomon Jones on Wake Up with Word also making that a big major issue, big major topic, and leading that protest that took place last weekend outside of Philadelphia Police Headquarters to not just highlight the issue, but also to get some movement on it. So we went from, at one point, just 10 police officers being identified for desk duty to now 72. But there are questions that still linger. Exactly what more will the mayor, the police commissioner, city council do? Who will be terminated? What more will will other stakeholders or other government leaders or public officials do as well? Do we need to bring in the federal Justice Department? Do we need a federal civil rights probe of those officers or of the Philadelphia Police Department? You know, so there's a number of, also the officers who are being put on administrative duty. Those 72, are they supervisory officers? Because we found that a high number of those officers who were involved in that conduct or that misconduct were police lieutenants, they were police sergeants, commanders, folks who've been in leadership positions or who are currently in leadership positions inside the Philadelphia Police Department. That's a big problem. They should, especially those folks who were in leadership positions who were caught in that activity, definitely there should be some immediate and rather severe punishment, because they're leaders in the department. They're not supposed to be engaged in that kind of activity, that kind of misconduct on social media or anywhere. So we'll talk more about that here on Reality Check. We have to take a quick break. We're going to come back on the other side, and we'll be right back here on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word app. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Thanks to the rain, it is already a terrible commute. This traffic report, it's sponsored by Indeed.com. We'll start on the secondary and side streets. We do have a lot of roads still closed because of flooding, especially out in the suburbs, so be careful as you're out and about. On the main highway, Schuylkill Expressway westbound, barely moving from University up to the Vine Expressway. Further west, you're jammed from Girard out to Belmont. Again, Gladwin out to 476. Eastbound Schuylkill is jamming as you get on to 202 down to Belmont. Then again, Montgomery all the way down to 28th Street. On the Vine Expressway, eastbound, you're jammed 76 across the 95, westbound at Stop and Go from the Ben Franklin Parkway into the Schuylkill Merge. 95, as you head northbound, we'll start with the jam from Island Avenue up to the Walt Whitman Bridge. Then you are crawling from Penn's Landing to Girard. Southbound 95, that's Stop and Go Bridge Street down to Girard, then the Walt Whitman Bridge to Island Avenue. Again, 420 to 320. Blue Route southbound jam, St. David's all the way down to Media Swarthmore. Northbound is heavy getting on from 95. And the Boulevard northbound jams the Schuylkill Expressway into Broad Street. Bridges over the Delaware River, they are looking pretty good at the moment. Through South Jersey, 42 southbound jams the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. 676 southbound jamming the Martin Luther King Boulevard down to 42. It's jammed on 295 southbound from 73 down to 42. And a heads up through Maple Shade, 73 is closed in both directions between Main Street and Stiles Avenue. That is because of flooding. Indeed, used by over 3 million businesses for hiring, where business owners and HR professionals can post job openings with screener questions, then sort, review, and communicate with candidates from an online dashboard. Learn more at Indeed.com/hire. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a Word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Tammy Souza.
Overnight, we're looking at the possibility of isolated showers and thunderstorms. We still have a first alert in effect through midnight for the possibility of some localized flooding in the areas that have already seen so much rain. You'll wake up near 70 degrees in the morning. It'll be a humid day with a chance of an early morning shower, then clearing to sunshine, setting us up for what could be a spectacular weekend ahead. You can get the weather anytime you like. Just download our free NBC 10 app.
Mosque number 12 presents Should Black People Consider Separation Town Hall Meeting, Friday, June 21st at Triumph Baptist Church, 1648 Hunting Park. Separation, reparations, a panel discussion with Dr. Montero, Attorney Michael Court, and Minister Ava Muhammad, National Spokesperson of the Nation of Islam. The meeting begins at 6:30 p.m. this Friday, June 21st at Triumph Baptist Church located at Germantown and Hunting Park. Don't miss this explosive session on separation. For information, call 215-228-6044.
AARP presents the Black Music Makers Minute. When the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, was growing up as a princess in Detroit, stars like Duke Ellington, Sarah Vaughan, and Mahalia Jackson always visited her home to fellowship with her famous father, the Reverend C.L. Franklin, one of the most prolific black preachers at that time. True or false, Aretha Franklin learned to play piano from talented musicians who visited, and those lessons helped her write her first big hit, Respect. Time's up. It's false. The Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, was a self-taught piano prodigy and was not the composer of Respect. That was Otis Redding. AARP celebrates Black Music Month. Keep listening for more Black Music Makers Minutes, only on this station.
Word family, our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they're hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days of employment. Call Scott Drummond at 856-754-0360 or visit amorosos.com for details.
It's Lights on Chester this Friday, June 21st at the MJ Free Theater in Chester, Pennsylvania. Join the festivities for a free arts and cultural festival celebrating the past, present, and future of Overtown. Be there to watch the entire Illuminate Chester film series and enjoy the complimentary hors d'oeuvres, entertainment, and networking with local business owners. The street celebration begins at 6 p.m. and the film screening begins at 7 p.m. RSVP today at pahumanities.org/lightsonchester.
Listen live at wordradio.com.
Word Radio and Love Now Media present 11 Days of Love Stories. From now through June 21st, you'll hear love stories honoring acts of love that have paid it forward. Love Now Media will also present love storytelling workshops throughout the city. Word members will receive a free copy of Little Love Stories at each event. Go to facebook.com/Love Now Media for more information.
Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check here on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word app as well. At Ellison Report, hashtag Reality Check for more there. We're about to talk with Jessica Barnett. She's a policy analyst at the Commonwealth Foundation. Some other big news happening out of Harrisburg. CommonwealthFoundation.org for more information on them, but some big news that happened earlier this month out of Harrisburg. The Pennsylvania Senate had passed a major criminal justice reform package, so Jessica's here to talk with us about that package, things that she's noticing are rather significant, and what Pennsylvania is doing about its criminal justice system, what it's doing about its prisons moving forward. Jessica joins us by phone. Jessica, how are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, excellent. So this was a three-part package that was passed earlier in June dealing with probation, sentencing practices, also expanding victim support as well. What does this all mean, and how significant is this to you? Why is it so significant? Is it significant in terms of the number of people that it's supposed to keep out of jail, keep from being incarcerated, or is it more so significant because of the amount of money that the state will end up saving?
Yeah, so this package of reform is really based on a simple premise that Pennsylvanians really deserve a fair and efficient corrections system, and that means it'll also be effective. So Pennsylvania has enormous opportunity for reform, given the size of our state as well as the size of our correction system. We've actually been among a leader in state reform. This began way back in 2012 with what's known as the Justice Reinvestment Reform, we continue to build upon that to currently what you're talking about, which is Justice Reinvestment is basically the second phase of that. And it's aiming to really identify and address our high incarceration rate. We have nearly 50,000 individuals in prison. Our supervisory rate, so individuals on probation and parole, is among the highest in the nation. So absolutely, this is about the thousands of people who are being impacted by the corrections system as well as their communities. And also, corrections is expensive. I mean, we are willing to pay to protect the public, but we can be doing it in a much more efficient way that also respects the dignity of individuals.
This has been a massive budget for a number of years, the Pennsylvania state prison budget. And so, and you know, we're talking about Pennsylvania prisons housing nearly 50,000 inmates. That's also an economy as well. How are we able to pass a bipartisan criminal justice reform package that creates a much more efficient, slimmed down prison system? How are we able to do that, taking into consideration the economics of prison communities? There are a lot of jobs that rely on prisons. So I'm wondering how we were able to get sort of, you know, legislators, particularly Republican legislators from certain parts of the state, who represent those areas or represent those communities that rely on jobs from, you know, inmate or prison institutions. How do we make that happen?
Yeah, and I would say that prison and corrections reform should be about public safety first, not necessarily about prison jobs. And so these reforms are really geared towards, you know, shifting corrections towards what's most effective and efficient. And that will result in savings across the state. But most importantly, it helps people rehabilitate back into their communities and back into their lives. And so there's an economic cost when individuals are in jail versus when they're in their communities, maybe serving probation, they're able to keep a job and return back to their economies and into the workforce. And so these reforms that recently passed, the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, it really focuses on reducing that recidivism. So individuals who maybe are just doing technical probation violations, for example, prioritizing resources for individuals who are committing worse crimes, those are the ones who should be going to prison. But meanwhile, individuals who are low risk of offending are indicating that they want to turn their lives around. We should give them a chance to return their communities, really not return to crime. And that's ultimately what is going to lead to a more effective correction system.
Now, also, Pennsylvania has the distinction of being a state criminal justice system or a state incarceration system that has a very high population of folks who are on probation or parole. And so one of the key elements or key features of this bipartisan criminal justice reform package was county probation. So what makes county probation? I noticed that it's sort of its own, it's not just probation alone, it's county level probation and parole. What makes that different when you reinvest in county level probation and parole? How is this going to be any better than what the state has relied on before, as far as, you know, managing its incarcerated population?
Yeah, resources definitely need to go to the area of greatest need, and we have identified that county corrections departments, they're handling the vast majority of supervisory population, so individuals on probation and parole. So there's almost 300,000 individuals in this population, and the counties handle upwards of 90% of that. However, they don't really have centralized supports. They don't have best practices coming from the state. They don't have much data in which to most effectively do their job. And they're also receiving less funding over the past 10 to 15 years. So if we can give resources to the areas of the greatest need at these county levels, they can then prioritize what is the best way that we can help these individuals and equip them to return to their communities and lead crime-free lives.
We're talking with Jessica Barnett. She's a policy analyst with the Commonwealth Foundation. Go to the Commonwealth or CommonwealthFoundation.org for more information. Also, Jessica, I noticed another feature or element of that package, that legislative package that passed earlier this month, expanding victim support. And so that's also one of the more trickier aspects of these conversations on criminal justice reform. There is sometimes that perception from certain communities or from individuals who have been victims of crime that they're feeling that there's somewhat of a more of a compassionate approach towards the convicted, towards those who are incarcerated, some of those who inflicted damage on certain communities and families and individuals, than on the victims themselves. And so how do we navigate that conversation? I guess this is a first step here by improving victim rights communication and also requirements for victim compensation. So will this be any different? Will this start to sort of assuage victim concerns that, you know, hey, you guys are looking out too much for the incarcerated and not thinking enough about us?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. So criminal justice reform and support for victims are really two sides of the same coins. And so that's why it's really important that these reforms also prioritize these individuals who have been harmed, who shouldn't be continuously harmed because maybe they don't have the resources they need. So the third bill in this package, so SB 502, that would specifically give victims a greater voice because they would know about their rights in a way that they often kind of fall through the cracks currently. It would also ensure that they have more access to things like victim compensation, expanding the eligibility. It really helps individuals rebuild their lives and kind of stops that cycle of harming those individuals.
All right, Jessica Barnett, who is policy analyst for the Commonwealth Foundation, here talking with us about criminal justice reform in Pennsylvania. Also, Jessica, what is the next step here? I mean, as far as this issue is concerned, are we looking at future legislation on this topic on the horizon?
Yeah, so this package of reform specifically passed the Senate unanimously for the second year in a row. And then it's currently in the House where there's also broad support as well. So we're hoping that, you know, in the next few months and in the fall, that this is really going to get the attention that it deserves. I think it's also worth noting that there are other reforms out there that are equally important and giving these individuals the tools to rebuild their lives and to make our system more effective. Probation reform is a huge area. And so in the Senate, Senators William and Bartolotta, as well as in the House, Representative Delosier, and then I believe one of your local representatives, Jordan Harris, have really been leaders in making our probation system more efficient and to help reduce that recidivism rate. And there's also things like occupational licensing, which helps reduce barriers to work so that people leaving prison who need employment can actually access employment. So there's a lot of opportunities here to look at this holistically and advocate for these reforms that really can transform Pennsylvania.
All right, Jessica Barnett with the Commonwealth Foundation. Thanks so much, Jessica. We'll talk to you again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
All right. Go to CommonwealthFoundation.org for more information there. We're going to take a quick break. Come back on the other side. We're going to open up phone lines at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Once again, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
Thanks to the rain, it is already a terrible commute. This traffic report, it's sponsored by Indeed.com. We'll start on the secondary and side streets. We do have a lot of roads still closed because of flooding, especially out in the suburbs, so be careful as you're out and about. On the main highway, Schuylkill Expressway westbound, barely moving from University up to the Vine Expressway. Further west, you're jammed from Girard out to Belmont. Again, Gladwin out to 476. Eastbound Schuylkill is jamming as you get on to 202 down to Belmont. Then again, Montgomery all the way down to 28th Street. On the Vine Expressway, eastbound, you're jammed 76 across the 95, westbound at Stop and Go from the Ben Franklin Parkway into the Schuylkill Merge. 95 as you head northbound. We'll start with the jam from Island Avenue up to the Walt Whitman Bridge. Then you are crawling from Penn's Landing to Girard. Southbound 95, that's Stop and Go Bridge Street down to Girard, then the Walt Whitman Bridge to Island Avenue. Again, 420 to 320. Blue Route southbound jam, St. David's all the way down to Media Swarthmore. Northbound is heavy getting on from 95. And the Boulevard northbound jams the Schuylkill Expressway into Broad Street. Bridges over the Delaware River, they are looking pretty good at the moment. Through South Jersey, 42 southbound jams the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. 676 southbound jamming the Martin Luther King Boulevard down to 42. It's jammed on 295 southbound from 73 down to 42. And a heads up through Maple Shade. 73 is closed in both directions between Main Street and Stiles Avenue. That is because of flooding. Indeed, used by over 3 million businesses for hiring, where business owners and HR professionals can post job openings with screener questions, then sort, review, and communicate with candidates from an online dashboard. Learn more at Indeed.com/hire. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Tammy Souza.
Overnight, we're looking at the possibility of isolated showers and thunderstorms. We still have a first alert in effect through midnight for the possibility of some localized flooding in the areas that have already seen so much rain. You'll wake up near 70 degrees in the morning. It'll be a humid day with a chance of an early morning shower, then clearing to sunshine, setting us up for what could be a spectacular weekend ahead. You can get the weather anytime you like. Just download our free NBC 10 app.
Brothers and sisters! Don't miss The Source. Weekdays 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Word Radio, WordRadio.com, and the Word Radio app.
Bachelor Brothers Funeral Services, proudly serving families in 3 locations: Trenton, New Jersey, Broad Street in North Philly, and Garrett Road near West Philly. A tradition of excellence, a promise of care. BachelorBrothers.com or call Bachelor Brothers at 610-713-5560.
Hey, Pico customers, how would you like to save energy and money and get $75 for that old working fridge or freezer in your garage or basement? Well, Pico makes it easy for you. They'll come to your home, pick it up, dispose of it responsibly, and give you $75. That's right, $75. Just schedule your pickup at pico.com/recycling or call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE today. That's pico.com/recycling or call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE.
The Sweet Treat Hut is the highest rated juice bar in Philly, located on the corner of 50th and Thompson Streets, providing delicious, healthy vegan food, juices, and smoothies. Treat yourself to a cup of happiness. Call 215-877-1471.
Join Word Radio Friday, June 28th for the annual Word Wellness and Food Festival at the Fresh Grocer of Monument Road. And take advantage of our special early bird membership drive. Start or renew your 4-Word membership between now and June 28th, and you'll get a discounted rate of just $75. Join the 4-Word movement today so you can protect and preserve independent black media. Call 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com. We'll see you on June 28th. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. A lot of issues to talk about, a lot to unpack here on this Thursday edition. Is the end of the week edition of Reality Check, since we don't broadcast on Fridays here on Reality Check. It's also flood warning reality check, flood warning edition, because there's a lot of flash floods happening in Philly, and it's not a good thing. Definitely want to get your take, your perspective, if you're dealing with that issue, if that's becoming a burden for you, whether it's at your household or in your neighborhood. Philadelphia is definitely in that high level sea rise, climate change impact zone line of fire. So it's something that we're going to have to increasingly talk about more. We have to be more conscious of it in a city like Philadelphia, East Coast city, and black people, especially black populations, who are going to be the hardest hit by flooding. The hardest hit. Let me repeat that. Flooding has all sorts of major racial and socioeconomic consequences that come along with it. We are literally in the path of a lot of that massive major flooding that's hitting this city. We're seeing historic flooding that's hitting the Northeast U.S. area and also cities like Philly. So we're going to have to pay more attention to this issue, and we're going to have to prepare for it as well. Let me go to the phone lines. Let me go to Gary out of South Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Gary, how are you doing?
Hi, all right. Everything's fine. I went to the hearing this morning, and, I had to leave because of some important matters. But what I noticed is they read a lot of stuff, and they did a lot of stuff. And then they got to speaking, I think one of the persons spoke about Article 6, 1, Section 6. And I didn't know really what that totally means, that it was stated that the police that did and caused those racist slurs should have been fired, according to that. So Section 6, Article 6, Section 1-6.
This is these are the Philadelphia police guidelines, or this is for city employees?
I'm not quite sure. That's what I wanted to get clear on.
Yeah, I'd like to look into that. I'm wondering if that it could be the guidelines for city employees.
Okay.
But you know, at the same time, real quick, I'm sorry, Gary. I'll let you go. But one other thought is that police unions are very powerful, and it's just hard to fire police officers.
Right. And the other part of it is that you have a hearing when you're about to go on summer vacation. You have a high crime rate. You have police with racist slurs. So now this month, these 2 months of during the summer, when they come back September 12th, what is hell supposed to break loose and nobody intervene?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's kind of crazy. You know that this issue exists.
Yeah.
You got these police out here that are policing the community. You got them at desk jobs, and you don't even know how many others are out there causing havoc. You got the community causing havoc on their own selves. So what's going to happen to the people that are sandwiched in the middle of the good people? And the politicians are on vacation until September.
Mm-hmm.
What's that all about?
That's a good question, right? So that behavior is not just isolated to that digital space, just to social media alone. That behavior will have consequences. It will spill over into how officers are policing in various communities, and then it's going to have an impact on the public safety condition of those communities. And that's something we've been talking about for the past few days. Is it's not just about, it's not something trivial. It's not something silly where officers are just on Facebook. Obviously, that has an impact on the way they police. And so, you know, that's why I've been saying, you know, for a day or so here now, I don't think the police, particularly the Philadelphia Police Department, you know, police need to take policing more seriously. I don't think they really take it all that seriously. It's just like, it's just a job. This is a very serious profession. Treat it like a profession. Treat it like a major, noble, high-level profession. And
I don't think the politicians take it seriously either.
No, I agree with you on that.
Come on. It's both parties that don't take it very seriously. And the people that came out and threw, they were there, they were supporting themselves, and they took it so lightly. Like, okay, we're going on vacation. That's what Darrell Clark said at the end. Good night, everybody.
Right, exactly. You want to go on vacation while you got this policing crisis.
Go, you know, and do your thing. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, you
can't make that stuff up.
It is crazy. You can't make it up, right? I mean, it's like
have a good day.
It's writing itself like a novel, right? Thanks so much, Gary, out of South Philly. So yeah, I just, you know, kind of it's just sort of this attitude of business as usual, and maybe things would kind of shift in a different way for Philadelphia, for Philadelphians, if certain folks would treat this with a little bit more urgency. And it is that important an issue, particularly as we're heading into, once again, a very hot summer where crime rates are expected to rise. Let me go to Frank out of West Philly, who's calling in for a reality check.
But I can't watch them two.
Frank, how are you doing? Can you hear us, Frank? Frank, we had to let Frank go. Frank out of West Philly, call back, Frank, because we don't know what was happening with you. But feel free to call in 215-634-8065. Also, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to Jim out of Clearwater, who's calling in for a reality check.
Hello, Mr. Ellison.
Jim, how are you doing, sir?
Fine, glad to say.
All right.
You know, one thing with your last call and talking about policemen, don't forget our society now has made hero worship a policeman's badge of honor. You know, every time you talk about a policeman, you have to talk about him as a hero. I mean, and, you know, a long time ago I read a book, and it was a soldier out of World War II, I believe. And he said a hero is nothing but a sandwich. He said any person that tries to be a hero usually puts more people in jeopardy. So, and then also, yesterday you were talking about voting. And it was the protest. One person talked about a protest vote.
Right, protest vote.
And I thought that was, when you said it was a wasted vote, and I have to agree with you. For the simple reason, if you have an administration that's in there now that's forwarding your circumstances, such as, you know, reparations, and you go and have a protest vote the next year, you've taken yourself out of position. You voted yourself right out of position rather than feathering it.
Right.
Okay. And also the position that you talked about the Japanese in reference to, I'm going over all of them, Japanese that have the
internment camps during World War II.
During
Right.
internment camps and how they lobby for their position.
Right.
But don't forget society, the white society really castigated black. They went all out, and almost like in a sense, overused media, that we were not worth the ground we stood on.
Right.
And they, in a sense, they lobbied it, not just for a certain period of time, but for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, I mean, when we talked about all these things in reference to, slavery, or reference to Japanese internment, or reference to police, again, all these things come back to our community as our strength, is that only way we're going to have strength is we take care of our own communities, make our communities strong, to be able to be that block that can demand something.
Right.
And even if there is reparations, is your education in your neighborhood, have you taken education to the extent that you will be in a position to take advantage of those opportunities that they bring forward? Or will you still be a victim?
Right.
Complaining about what you weren't afforded.
Right. Hey, Jim, thanks so much for calling in. I appreciate you. I appreciate those comments as well. I want to bring on Solomon Jones. Solomon Jones is host, executive producer of Wake Up with Word in the mornings, and he's been providing quite a bit of leadership on this issue of these insensitive, racist, bigoted remarks and posts that were found on Facebook as a result of that research, and highlighting it in such a way and showing us that it's bigger than just cops having, cops engaged in all sorts of unseemly behavior on social media. It's bigger than that. Solomon, how are you doing?
I'm good, Charles. How are you?
All right, good. So thanks for calling out. Well, I got you for several minutes. I appreciate your time here. How did things turn out in City Council, you think, today? Because you were there today with other folks talking about this issue, trying to push City Council into action. So how did it turn out for you?
Well, we do believe that it turned out well, and not necessarily because of what we did today, but because we had been calling council members, we had been in communication with them, we had been pressing them to do a resolution that would allow them to do hearings on this topic of the Facebook posts by these police officers. And so by the time we got there today, we learned that Derek Green had indeed done a resolution, and that several members of council had signed on to that resolution. My problem with that is that it should have been 17. It should have been every member of council, and it was not. It was Derek Green. He had 10 co-sponsors, and we appreciate each one of them, but it should have been unanimous, and so we still have some work to do.
Do you feel as if, or do we have any more information on the exact position of those 72 officers who are being put on administrative leave? And you and I talked about this briefly, but are you thinking that maybe we can get some more information, demographic information, out of the city police department about exactly who's being put on administrative leave and whether or not those are folks who are in leadership positions? Because we found a number of officers on Facebook who were captains and lieutenants and sergeants, an inspector. So that's a problem.
That is a problem, and we'll have to go back and ask for that information. We did meet with the mayor and the police commissioner yesterday, the Rally for Justice Coalition, which and I just have to really thank those who were part of that. Pastor Alan Waller of Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church, Minister Rodney Muhammad, the head of the NAACP, Paula Peebles from the National Action Network, Reverend Jay Broadnax from the Philadelphia Black Clergy, Rochelle Bilal, who is the Democratic nominee for sheriff, but also president of the Guardian Civic League, Power with Reverend Mark Tyler and Reverend Gregory Holston, and the Philadelphia Student Union. I mean, we had a coalition, man, and we worked together as a coalition. And so when we went in for that meeting yesterday, it was about short-term goals and long-term goals. In the short term, how many of these officers are off the street, and how many more are you willing to take off the street until the investigation is complete. And so what are you going to do around your training that you offer to your police officers in the police academy and beyond around race and racism? And we went through the discipline code with them and said, no, these are the things that your discipline code says. And so you, Commissioner, as the final arbiter on things of discipline, can get rid of them now based on what I'm reading in this discipline code. And so we believe that we made progress in that meeting. We believe that there will be more to come in terms of discipline and in terms of firing, and we look forward to seeing that. And so, it's a step, man. It's a step-by-step process. It really is.
Hey, real quick, Solomon, what do we worry about the impact of this episode and also the vast number of officers that were involved in it and those who are being put on desk duty? Are there worries or are there concerns in the community about what that might mean in terms of violence in the city, particularly as we're heading into the summer?
Well, let me just say this, that even before this came out, the homicide clearance rate was not what it should have been.
Right.
And so whether or not you have more officers on the street is not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is whether you have effective officers on the street. And in order to be effective, you have to have the trust of the community. And so these 328 officers who were on active duty and who did these Facebook posts eroded the trust, not only that we had in them, but that we have in the department as a whole. And so what they've done is they have hurt the ability of the police department to police effectively, because now we don't trust you. We didn't trust you before, but now you've said openly what we already suspected, that there were those among you that looked at us as savages, as animals, as thugs, and acted accordingly. And so it's not the number of police on the street. It is whether or not the community is willing to work with them and trust them. And so taking these officers off the street does not hurt the police department. In fact, I think it helps the police department in helping to reestablish that trust.
All right, we've been talking with Solomon Jones, who's host of Wake Up with Word, which you hear here on WURD from 7 to 10 a.m. every morning. He's been joining us by phone. Solomon, once again, thanks for your time.
Yep. Talk to you soon, Charles.
Yes, sir. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, Letitia Beecham with the Center for Public Integrity is joining us. We're going to talk about things happening in Washington these days. We're going to come right back. And also the phone lines are open too. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Letitia Beecham back. We haven't talked to her in a couple of weeks, so it's good to have her back. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We'll be right back.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation?
Follow us on social media
using the hashtag onWURD.
Be heard.
Stay connected to Word Radio.
Independent Black Media.
Listen to Word Radio on the go with the Word Radio app. Search for WURD in your favorite app store today and take us with you wherever you go. Stay connected to Word Radio. Independent Black Media.
Attention Word audience, do you know that PECO can provide you with more information about your energy usage through their Smart Meter program? The new Smart Meter, also known as electric meters, and the PECO interactive website helps to give you more information on understanding how to best use energy and how to save energy and money. Smart Meters also provide quick support to local fire departments and other officials during an emergency. And you can get faster, more convenient service when moving out of your home or into a new home. Smart Meters can also identify potentially dangerous situations like tampered meters and reroute power to restore faster service in the event of an outage. Visit PECO.com and search Smart Meters to learn more about signing up to save energy and money. PECO, powering our communities.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart savings strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
We are progressive and proud and interactive. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at onWURD. This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, Word family, I want you to come party with us, all of us, next week, Friday, June 28th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for our annual Food and Wellness Festival. Join us at the Fresh Grocer of Monument Road, 4160 Monument Road. We're broadcasting live with all your favorite hosts for an entire afternoon of family fun, food, and great health information featuring Zumba. So folks will be able to get down with some Zumba. Chair yoga led by Daybreak host Helana. It's the popular Daybreak host here on WRD. Also a healing drum circle, a kids zone featuring face painting, stilt walkers, and a bouncy house. Can't forget about the bouncy houses. You always need those. Also, we have our annual Best Barbecue Contest. That's also taking place at the Fresh Grocer of Monument Road for our annual Food and Wellness Festival. And the fun continues at 5 p.m. for a very special Black Music Month happy hour mixer from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. This will be the final day. Today is the final day to start or renew your 4WORD membership at the special early bird rate of just $75. Normally it's $90, but today, or the final day for the discount, is $75. So get there early or start to start or renew at the festival and get your swag on site. It's all happening Friday, June 28th at the Fresh Grocer Monument Road, 4160 Monument Road Festival from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. with the Word Black Music Month happy hour mixer from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So we want to bring the whole family. You got Moravia Home Health, AARP, PA Lottery, Dedicated Home Health, Brown Superstores, Ers, Dietz & Watson, Amoroso's, and Canada Dry as sponsors. Also Philadelphia Energy Authority, Philadelphia Technical Training. A Place Like Home, Chiropractic Dynamics, Mary Kay Plus gift baskets, My Independence at Home. So we want to also send out a shout, thank you to our sponsors for making the Word Annual Food and Wellness Festival possible. That's next Friday, June 28th. Go to WRDradio.com for more information on that. Joining us now is Letitia Beecham. It's been a couple of weeks. Joining us by phone from Washington, D.C. She's politics reporter for the Center for Public Integrity. Go to publicintegrity.org for more information. Phone lines are open, too, by the way, for this conversation, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Letitia, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Charles?
All right, good. It's good talking to you. So we got a lot to catch up on. We have a lot to catch up on air, and we have a lot to catch up on offline, so I'll definitely get in touch with you soon.
Okay.
There's so much going on, and I know we wanted to collaborate on a few things and create some more discussion about everything that's happening in D.C. and also beyond with this 2020 election coming up. So let's start with Joe Biden and sort of the pickle that he finds himself in with people now reflecting on these comments that he made about his time interfacing with openly segregationist senators back in the 1970s and really the 80s as well. I mean, some of those folks were there even into the 90s, and some of them are still there. But how problematic is that for Joe Biden? He seems to be not dismissive of it, but he's definitely taking or ripping a page out of Donald Trump's playbook. I'm not going to apologize for anything.
Right, and it's something that we've seen from Biden over and over in this current presidential bid. Now, as far as whether or not he finds himself in the pickle, Biden's response to CNN yesterday doesn't quite indicate that he necessarily has that sentiment. But I think if you are definitely on the far left side of the Democratic Party, this is kind of troubling, and this is a little disturbing because what this is a dog whistle to you in some ways, meaning that if you are on the far left, like an Ocasio-Cortez, and depending on what day, Cory Booker, for instance, this is trying to say to, especially rural or middle America, southern white people, that it's okay to kind of come back to the Democratic Party. And so what we're seeing right now with this particular candidate more than anything is how are we going to also include certain voters without alienating others, especially white voters. Joe Biden bringing up segregationists was kind of a callback to a time when there was a such thing as polite company, but if you talk to a person who studies anything about black history, like polite company hasn't been so polite to black folk for a long time in this country, and someone touting his ability to reach across the aisles to a segregationist is deeply disturbing.
It is deeply disturbing on many levels, and so that's the other thing, though. Does he still feel as if I do sense a little bit of dog whistling there, like he's positioning himself for the general election, and there's a bit of some sort of presumptiveness there that I will get this nomination, and so I need you to prepare for me as the alternative to Donald Trump. That might be troubling to some, but it might be troubling to progressives, and definitely it's troubling, and it's caused concern and public statements from the two black candidates who are in that crowded Democratic primary pack. But what about black voters? Because particularly older black voters who feel like, well, he's been vetted. He did 8 years of Obama.
Right, and I think it's also important to realize what a short memory that most voters have in general. That's not excluding Biden's had a somewhat questionable past when it comes to working across the aisle with people, especially I believe with maybe the Reagan administration, where he basically agreed to having a drug czar, which we all saw the ramifications of beefing up the DEA and what that has meant to black people. But as far as the polls with Biden, he kind of right now doesn't really need to be concerned. He still has a lead with black voters right now. I think the latest poll, he's still in the 26 percentage points more than anyone else overall for Democratic voters, especially with black voters. And I do think what we're seeing with these polls, which of course, as we all know, are not crystal ball to the future, but they do seem to skew more towards polling older voters, Democratic voters. And I think you will continue to see this sort of delineation between younger black voters and older black voters, in the sense that I think when we look at, the stories that have been written about what's important right now, it's, one, beating Trump and also economic security. And right now, if we're bring in the context of respectability politics, certain things, and we can go back to the civil rights movement, certain things do need to be pushed to the side. In the 1950s and the 1960s, when people were thinking about who should be the face of the movement, homosexuals weren't really a part of that conversation. Even darker-skinned people weren't a part of that conversation. And even though reparations has long been a conversation in the black community, there is a sense of, okay, maybe we need to be quiet about this one thing so we can get the one thing we do need, which is more job security and also better health care. And also with I think it's also important to point out that my former representative, because I am from South Carolina, Clyburn, coming out and saying, I worked with Strom Thurmond plenty of years, it kind of erases this hard line that the newer wave of Democrats are trying to draw in the sand of what does it mean to work across the aisle, and also is there an enemy or is there not an enemy? And I think Clyburn making that recent statement is is kind of saying, we need to work across the aisle regardless of where we stand ideologically or if you even see me as an inferior being.
Right. Purity test versus pragmatism.
Right.
People just saying that. And to a degree, Clyburn makes a point, and also Biden makes a point, even though I feel like Biden's, and we can talk about this more, I'm sure we'll talk about it more during my conversation with you, Letitia. I know folks will, I was talking about on another radio show in Chicago earlier this morning that at the end of the day, legislators are not activists. And also legislators or lawmakers or members of Congress, members on the House or the Senate side, they represent different constituencies, particularly on the House level. Those constituencies might be a little bit more homogenous than other constituencies or other districts, right? And so, and it's all about getting work done, and drafting and developing and passing legislation. But we should have reached a point now where certain modes of behavior or certain standards from yesteryear should be inappropriate now in 2019. And so, that's something that apparently. So in a way, this kind of mirrors the situation that Biden had with the where he had his Me Too moment, where he couldn't quite grasp why, being so touchy-feely, being so friendly with women was a bad thing, was something that's inappropriate. That's just not the way folks interface anymore, even though, being so sentimental and so close quarters with a woman, particularly in a space, sort of violating or invading their space. It's kind of the same thing here.
Right. I mean, what we're seeing with Biden's comments and his attitude toward this, not only saying he has nothing to apologize, but then when Cory Booker, the one black man who is also running for president this current time around, saying he should apologize to him, kind of shows that Biden perhaps is out of touch with the way things are now. Where does Biden fit in the current political space? Is he willing to adapt to the social and cultural norms that are kind of standard right now? And I think with Democrats who are supporting him, whether they're young, old, in between, how much of a cosign, I think they're going to have to face, how much of a cosign do they want to endorse with Biden, with potentially going back in certain ways and accepting certain behaviors, accepting certain rhetoric in public? Because if you look at this on face, the one black man candidate who is saying, hey, this is inappropriate, these people were segregationists, and for Joe Biden to say something like, I don't have a racist bone in my body, you should apologize to me, is very essential to saying, hey, I have a black friend, so you can't say I'm racist. Or, I have a black wife, you can't call me racist. That one does not cancel out the other.
But you know what's funny about that though? It takes me back to 2008 and sort of that episode that he had with the very brief episode he had with then Senator Obama, right? Where he said, "Oh, he's a very articulate black man," and there was an uproar over that. And so is Biden sort of channeling some anger or some frustration from that moment, saying that you're not going to catch me in this? In this again, you're not going to trip me up like Barack did back in 2000. I know how to handle this now. I'm not going to apologize to you. You need to apologize to me.
Right, and I think what Biden is communicating is that he is not really here for the heightened level of sensitivity that currently exists in our current political climate. He is not going to entertain that. Furthermore, he's not going to apologize for it. He is in some way, even though he's a foil to Trump, kind of similar in the fact that you can take me or you can leave me. And right now, people are taking him, especially black voters.
Right. Is he still, do we think he's still inevitable, or we have to see how kind of the polling numbers shake out next week? And really next week we've got these debates too, so we don't know how that'll what will happen there, or how the candidates will present themselves, or if there'll be any major unforeseen shift in things.
Yes, I think the debates will definitely be one of the watershed moments for all of the candidates. Right now, we have the top three, which are Biden, Warren, and Sanders. And Warren has has recently jumped over Sanders in the lead, so it is between Biden and Warren right now. If Joe is not able to articulate his plans and his policies, all things that he said would come later when he launched his campaign, well, later has arrived. And if we really care about the policies that are going forth and how Joe is, one, going to improve the country, and two, beat Trump, he has to have something that's a little bit more concrete outside of his 8 years of being vice president. And two, like, let's not forget, the same way people are fatigued about Bernie Sanders running for another time after a losing term, this is Joe Biden's third term of trying to become president, you know. So if he doesn't get it right, he has a lot more on his shoulders coming this debate. Not only does he have this hype, not only does he have this name recognition working in his favor more so than any other candidates, the two other black candidates, Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, are struggling in the polls in the single digits, along with Andrew Yang, another person of color in this race. Biden has to deliver a little bit. Maybe he doesn't have to come out with a home run during the debates, but he does have to come out with something that will at least resonate with voters. Whether that's a concrete policy proposal like Warren, I'm not quite sure if his camp has really delved into that just yet. But he needs something that's going to touch people and make them feel, one, better, and two, like he can change something about him. Because that's exactly what Trump did when he was running for office in 2016. He did something that resonated with voters, whether we like the tactics or not. It worked. He had no real concrete plan. It worked when he's in office. So how is Joe going to deliver that and hopefully make it past this debate? I don't think he's as inevitable as his campaign has kind of made him out to be.
Talking with Letitia Beacham, politics reporter for the Center for Public Integrity. Go to publicintegrity.org. Also at Letitia Beacham on social media, on Twitter. Phone lines are open as well if you'd like to join in on the conversation at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. And Letitia, how much of a central role will the reparations debate or the reparations discussion play in 2020? We saw these House hearings that were taking place yesterday, or a House hearing at the House Judiciary Subcommittee. And I found that, I don't know if you found that odd, it just wasn't a whole lot of attendance from the members themselves, particularly Congressional Black Caucus members. They were absent. I should ask you about that. What's going on with that? Why were a lot of folks saw that it was only Sheila Jackson Lee and Karen Bass that we saw, and that's like barely a fraction of the entire Congressional Black Caucus, which is the largest ever that has ever been this session of Congress. And so what was happening there?
Yeah, so I think with going forward in this presidential election, I'm not quite sure how reparations is going to shape it. The issue with reparations in general is that no one has agreed upon what reparations should look like, right? It's not 40 acres and a mule anymore going forward. It's a lot more complicated, as we know, as we've studied history, as we've seen the outcomes of being descendants of slaves. But I think we'll see it shape more if the candidates choose to make this an issue next week as well in the debates. Right now, reparations, and especially if we're looking at the CBC, and let's be honest, the CBC definitely skews a little bit more conservative in the Democratic Party, more in the Clyburn side of things, and I'm only using him as a recent reference to make my point. But reparations is seen as a fringe issue among a lot of lawmakers, even if they're black lawmakers, right? So I think going forward, we're going to see either the candidates, probably Kamala Harris or Cory Booker, who have both talked about this extensively, and to an extent Elizabeth Warren, bring this up. But if they don't bring it up, I don't think we're going to see this being a major issue of any nominee going.
You know, the other thing too, real quick, Letitia, do we risk the conversation about reparations? Is it so front and center? Is it so much prominent in the black political discourse that we end up ignoring other issues of import? Because we're having this big hearing on reparations, but we're not having, say, a big hearing on workforce development or education issues, for example, which are just as pressing and urgent right now.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because when we think about, when we look at yesterday's hearing, right, we had kind of like the black literati, kind of the black elite talking about the importance of reparation, and while that's important, we're talking about how this is going to benefit everyday black folk, and everyday black folk are concerned about the education of their children. Everyday black folk are concerned about how they're going to pay for child care. And more than anything, if we look at any of the polls and studies that have come out within the past week or so, they're concerned about job security, and they're concerned that their prospects for job employment opportunities, job growth, for themselves and their children is a lot more dire compared to any other racial group in this country. So, yeah, there are, when it comes to everyday black folk who don't have time to read Du Bois and wonder what reparations mean and have to clock in their 9 to 5 every day and feed their kids, there are more pressing issues right now, and they are looking for candidates who are going to alleviate whatever stress that they are currently facing or any anxiety that they have about their economic future.
All right, Letitia Beecham, politics reporter for the Center for Public Integrity. Go to @Letitia Beecham and also publicintegrity.org for more information there. Always good conversation, good analysis from Letitia Beecham. So thanks so much. I'll be catching up with you soon.
Awesome. I'll talk to you soon, Charles.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. All right. Thanks again. All right. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back on the other side, we'll be having a conversation with Ed Chung, Center for American Progress. That's coming up next here on Reality Check. Here, speaking of criminal justice reform issues, Ed Chung, that's one of the foremost experts in that, or foremost authorities in that field at the Center for American Progress. So we're going to be having that conversation with him coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word app. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update
on Word Radio.
Thanks to the rain, it is already a terrible commute. This traffic report is sponsored by Indeed.com. We'll start on the secondary and side streets. We do have a lot of roads still closed because of flooding, especially out in the suburbs, so be careful as you're out and about. On the main highway, Schuylkill Expressway westbound, barely moving from University up to the Vine Expressway. Further west, you're jammed from Girard out to Belmont. Again, Gladwin out to 476. Eastbound Schuylkill is jamming as you get on to 202 down to Belmont. Then again, Montgomery all the way down to 28th Street. On the Vine Expressway, eastbound, you're jammed 76 across the 95, westbound at Stop and Go from the Ben Franklin Parkway into the Schuylkill Merge. 95, as you head northbound, we'll start with the jam from Island Avenue up to the Walt Whitman Bridge. Then you are crawling from Penn's Landing to Girard. Southbound 95, that's Stop and Go Bridge Street down to Girard, then the Walt Whitman Bridge to Island Avenue, again 420 to 320. Blue Route southbound jam, St. David's all the way down to Media Swarthmore. Northbound is heavy getting on from 95, and the Boulevard northbound jams the Schuylkill Expressway into Broad Street. Bridges over the Delaware River, they are looking pretty good at the moment. Through South Jersey, 42 southbound jams the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. 676 southbound jamming the Martin Luther King Boulevard down to 42. It's jammed on 295 southbound from 73 down to 42. And a heads up through Maple Shade, 73 is closed in both directions between Main Street and Stiles Avenue. That is because of flooding. Indeed, used by over 3 million businesses for hiring, where business owners and HR professionals can post job openings with screener questions, then sort, review, and communicate with candidates from an online dashboard. Learn more at Indeed.com/hire. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a Word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Tammy Souza.
Overnight, we're looking at the possibility of isolated showers and thunderstorms. We still have a first alert in effect through midnight for the possibility of some localized flooding in the areas that have already seen so much rain. You'll wake up near 70 degrees in the morning. It'll be a humid day with a chance of an early morning shower, then clearing to sunshine, setting us up for what could be a spectacular weekend ahead. You can get the weather anytime you like. Just download our free NBC 10 app.
It's Lights on Chester this Friday, June 21st at the MJ Free Theater in Chester, Pennsylvania. Join the festivities for a free arts and cultural festival celebrating the past, present, and future of Overtown. Be there to watch the entire Illuminate Chester film series and enjoy the complimentary hors d'oeuvres, entertainment, and networking with local business owners. The street celebration begins at 6 p.m. and the film screening begins at 7 p.m. RSVP today at pahumanities.org/lightsonchester.
Word family.
Here's a deal from Dietz & Watson that you don't want to miss.
This week, visit any Brown ShopRite to take advantage of the Dietz & Watson beef available at the special price of just $8.99 a pound. Try out the all-new natural Angus roast beef or the Dietz & Watson corned beef. Both are on sale now through Sunday.
1 week only. Get yours today. Dietz & Watson. It's a family thing. WordRadio.com.
Word family, is me, Solomon Jones, host of Wake Up with Word, and I want to see you on June 28th at the Wellness and Food Festival at the Fresh Grocer, 4160 Monument Road. It's going to be a blast. All of us are going to be out there. We want to see you, talk to you, and I'm going to have some of my books as well. So join us right there at 4160 Monument Road for the Wellness and Food Festival. And please, whatever you do, make sure you join the 4-Word movement today and get your membership or renew between now and June 28th to take advantage of our $75 early bird special. We'll see you on June 28th at the Wellness and Food Festival. Be there.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio
and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Let me take callers, actually. Abdul Jabbar out of West Philly, who's calling in for a Reality Check. Abdul Jabbar, what's good?
Oh, man, I thought you forgot about me. How you doing?
No, we didn't forget about you.
All right, briefly, there was a very good turnout at the city council. You know, Solomon Jones, pretty much he covered it, but one thing that I was trying to get mentioned today when I went to city council, and unfortunately there was some confusion where my name wasn't called, I wanted to address 2 issues. The first was, DA Larry Krasner, you're not getting off. We need to go down to that district attorney's office and every single one of those police officers that were involved in these racist Facebook posts, you absolutely unequivocally, because the reality is this: if you feel that way and you're mentioning it on a public social site, imagine what you're doing on the street to people that are at the behest of your authority. And then the district attorney's office, how many deals are you guys making with these very law enforcement agents to try and, you know, negotiate on our lives? I know it's happened to me multiple times. I know it's happening to other people. We've seen what happened to Hassan Bennett. So let's just make sure we put the pressure on the DA's office and Richard Ross's boss, Mayor Jim Kenney. Let's put pressure on him. We can't leave him out, because although city council can put forth a resolution, the reality of it is this: Mayor Jim Kenney, you are the boss. We want to hear that you are going to fire these individuals. You're going to do your part as the mayor, because as it was brought to my attention, you're in control of that police commissioner. So I'd like to just say, I'm putting it out in the airways, all of these warriors that are out here, the soldiers pounding the pavement for the grassroots organizations and political associations. Let's do our part. The district attorney's office and the mayor's office, we got to get at them next. Thank you. You have a good day.
All right. You do the same. Thank you, Abdul Jabbar of West Philly. Let's have this conversation with Ed Chung, who is head of the Criminal Justice Project at the Center for American Progress. We were just talking to him recently in Washington, D.C. Let's listen in. Charles Ellison here at the 2019 Ideas Conference being held by the Center for American Progress here in Washington, D.C. Continue to go to @EllisonReport, #RealityCheck. Also listen in to Reality Check, the live broadcast on WURD in Philadelphia. @EllisonReport, #RealityCheck. Once again, we're here with Ed Chung. Ed Chung is Vice President of Criminal Justice at the Center for American Progress. You focus on criminal justice issues, and we've had you on Reality Check on WURD from time to time, so it's good to meet you in person finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for this. So that criminal justice conversation, and over the past several years, and I know you've been very encouraged by it, there's been a lot of talk about criminal justice reform. There's been a lot of steps towards real criminal justice reform. Let's first ask what the state of that is. Just kind of give us a high-level view of where that criminal justice reform is right now, and what's happening on not just the federal level, but also the state, local as well.
Yeah, and I think that second part is the real key right there. So, justice reform efforts have been happening for decades because we've had problems in the justice system for decades. But really kind of the national momentum seemed to have come to the real fore maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's really that when President Obama was in, there was a whole country that was kind of, really taking this issue and moving with it. That's still happening, even if it's not coming out of the White House, even if it's not coming out of the Justice Department. There are states, localities, cities that are really moving forward on change. And that's a good thing because a lot of these issues are based in cities and states. That's where 90% of the criminal justice system is, and so that's where 90% or more of the change needs to take place. And so you're seeing things like bail reform take place in New Jersey. I know New York passed one. I know California passed. There's other places that are looking at cash bail, ending cash bail, and making sure that the pretrial system, that people don't have to be locked up in order for them to return to court. And so we're seeing good results out of some of these jurisdictions. You're seeing things like, sentencing reforms and making sure that juveniles are not treated as adults in a lot of places. You saw even in California where you see the death penalty being Governor Newsom putting a moratorium and ending the death penalty essentially in California. So there's a lot of things that are happening, just maybe not really at the federal level in a very active way. There are things that are happening, but again, the real change happens in the states and in cities across the country.
We're talking about the states, and so we're seeing a lot of what people would characterize as regressive legislative behavior in many state legislatures, particularly in the South, or in states where you have massive black-brown populations that are disproportionately impacted by everything from the school to prison pipeline to mass incarceration. And so how do we reconcile that? I mean, are these states, on one hand, you've got both Democrats and Republicans in those states acknowledging that they need to reform their criminal justice systems, but then you see them regressive on issues such as gun control or abortion. And, there's that debate, and voting rights and a slew of other issues. And so how do we reconcile that?
I think one of the issues that the criminal justice reform movement has to do is we need to come out of our silo. So too often when we look at the system, we only look at the system. And so we look at things like what's happening in prisons and talk about what's happening in the South. In Alabama, there was a recent report that came out of the Justice Department that was started in the previous administration about the horrible prison conditions that really incites violence within the system, safety, just public health, or the health of people who are incarcerated within that. So there's but we only look at kind of that part of it. We're not looking at how the system connects to life in general, right? And so when you're talking about issues with violence or with guns and the prevalence of guns, these are all related issues, right? So if you're really serious about criminal justice reform, if you're a conservative that's really serious about that, you have to take a look at things like what we're doing with gun regulation. If you're really serious about second chances, which is something that I think has gotten bipartisan support, non-ideological support, you really have to look at first chances, and do people who are coming into the system actually have those first chances to begin with? So that includes things like education, jobs, neighborhoods where money has been leaving and where there has been just decades of non-investment, right? And creating conditions of poverty and just lack of opportunities. And so this is all connected together. So we can't, as a reform movement, as a transformation movement, just only look at what do we do from arrest to release. That's not where criminal justice reform is. You have to look at beyond that. And so I think there's a lot more that needs to be done to really bring this movement to a real, again, not just a national level, but just an impactful level.
Speaking of movements as well, we have this big movement to decriminalize or even legalize marijuana, cannabis. So you also have that trend that's happening in an accelerated fashion. on the state and local level. So is that aligned with criminal justice reform? Can criminal justice reform policy and legislation, can it keep up with that move to decriminalize or legalize the cannabis industry? Because, you know, obviously there's a lot of money at stake, and
Right.
so you know, that's one piece of it, right? I mean, is there as much money at stake in reforming the criminal justice system as there is in legalizing the marijuana industry?
Yeah, that's such a great point. And earlier this week, CAP came out with a report that when we're talking about wherever you're looking to legalize, whether it's states or even Congress, look, there's bills in Congress that are looking to you know, decriminalize and legalize and so forth. You have to lead with a racial justice and a criminal justice approach. You can't first start talking about, well, let's, you know, change some of the banking industry regulations or things like that, because those things are going to happen no matter what, right, during legalization. But what's always going to get left behind if you don't lead with it are things like, what are you going to do about those communities, black and brown communities, where marijuana enforcement put thousands of people, gave criminal records to thousands of people, and now those actions, those activities are legal. What are you going to do about those people? Are you going to provide expungement opportunities or at least sealing opportunities? Are you going to use the marijuana tax revenue to help those communities? So in the report that we put out earlier this week, there's some proposals around the country that are happening. Equitable licensing, so making sure that black and brown communities, black and brown business owners have opportunities to participate in the regulated, the legal market. But in addition to that, why not use the money that's flowing into state coffers and provide actual jobs, not jobs in the marijuana industry, but public sector jobs or jobs guaranteed by the government? Why can't we support those things in those communities? Our analysis shows that if you took a year of what California brought in, about $345 million in revenue, and you invested those in states, not only in states, but in the localities that have suffered disproportionate arrest rates in marijuana, you create 10,000 jobs. And that makes a difference, because obviously creating jobs, you could create a base where it supports the local economy and so forth. So there are things we need to do, but you have to lead with that approach and not just try to bring in more money into state coffers.
You know, and we talked about this before too, and is the economic climate right? Once you reform and you fundamentally alter the criminal justice system, you also you're able to transition many people, black males, for example, out of prisons, out of jails. But are they going to a solid, stable economic environment? You know, so will they be able to get jobs? Because black male unemployment is still relatively high compared to everyone else. Labor force participation is also very low, particularly with black males who are disproportionately impacted by that mass incarceration system. So how do we also try to resolve that? You know, because the same legislators who are crying for reform of that system are the same legislators who seem to be crafting policy that's not in the best economic interest of those populations.
Well, this is where I differ a little bit from the approach that maybe some of my conservative friends take on criminal justice reform. And you know, it's not their intention that I'm questioning, but it's the fact that if you're looking at criminal justice reform for a cost savings approach, then I think it's very short-sighted, because you have to invest money into exactly what you're talking about, into people who have come into the system, brought into the system, and what are we going to do to make sure that going out they're going to be successful as well? And that takes money and investment, whether it's in jobs, healthcare, housing, all of that. We need investments in that.
It has to be holistic.
Exactly.
You know, when you do that. If you're just now tuning in, this is Charles Ellison, Reality Check at Ellison Report, # Reality Check. Also, you can hear us on WURD as well. We're here at the 2019 Ideas Conference that's being hosted, facilitated by the Center for American Progress. Go to AmericanProgress.org for more information. We're here with Ed Chung, Vice President of Criminal Justice, here at the 2019 Ideas Conference. And Ed, speaking of criminal justice reform, the economic conditions or the material conditions that those impacted populations go back to, we're also now just a few days after the 65th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Ed landmark Supreme Court decision desegregating schools. But a lot of proponents, folks at that time who were able to win that case in 1954, probably didn't envision the school to prison pipeline getting as severe as it is now. So, you know, on one hand, we're reforming the justice system for adults and people who are in prisons and jails, but then we still have this school to prison pipeline. It's still persistent, and it seems to still grow. So what are we doing about that? What sort of conversation are we having about that?
The sad thing is that, you know, that part, while there's, I'm sure, a lot of local efforts that are happening that way, still the framework and the mindset that we have in this community, in this country, is that if somebody breaks a rule, the automatic response is, what can the criminal justice system do, or juvenile justice system? And so, you know, we have had a situation where, you know, educators there's an easy out for them when you have more school resource officers in schools, and the disciplinary issues, things that were usually handled by the schools, are now handed off to the system. And the problem is that you don't contemplate the consequences of that because it's off your plate at that point. Right? And so you're enlarging a system you're enlarging the criminal justice system through a different system, the education system. And this is what I think, to call back to an earlier point, this is why we can't just talk about the criminal justice system from the point of arrest and the point of release. You have to see how it connects out. And, you know, we know all the statistics about those who are, you know, involved in the system at an early age, their life opportunities shrink dramatically going forward. And so, you know, if we're going to connect these issues with health, with education, with housing, with opportunities, you have to start at the core and in the front. So, you know, one of the focuses that we have is, you know, how do you create opportunities for cities and jurisdictions not to just think about public safety in the eyes of police, from saying that the police are the only solution to it. How do you create alternative mechanisms? And some cities are doing that. You're looking at alternatives to 911, for example, so that members of the community can, you know, call a different number that doesn't necessarily call the police to the situation. I think for school systems, you have to look at the same type of thing as well.
You know, this 2020 presidential election got a crowded Democratic primary pack, and has been heightened focus, heightened awareness of criminal justice, and also these huge disparities and the disproportionate impact it's had on certain populations. We've never seen that kind of heightened awareness surrounding that issue before in previous presidential elections. Are you encouraged by that, or do you feel that that conversation you know, is not as expansive enough? Because there's a lot of it is also focus on that 1994 omnibus crime bill and the role that a certain candidate played in that and crafting that. And so is that somewhat discouraging because you feel like, hey, you know, there's an opportunity here for us to really have a progressive discussion on this, and that's not happening?
I'm encouraged and discouraged at the same time. I think, you know, some of the early questioning in whether it's town halls or things like that focused on some niche areas. So you're seeing things like the question of whether or not people who are currently incarcerated should be able to vote. And I think that's an important issue, but there's a broader question that any future president needs to answer. And what I haven't seen in the national discussion from any of the, you know, what candidates or whoever, we want a vision from them about what they see in our criminal justice system and how the system connects outside. And, you know, I think it's early still in the process, and people are starting to roll out platforms. But until they do, and until they come out and say, you know, this is what my vision is, these are what my principles are, these are the things that I'm going to do on day one. We need to make sure that these candidates take this issue seriously. And so until we can examine what they're actually going to do and what they actually stand for, and then compare it to what they've done in the past. I don't think it's kind of an incomplete at this point. And so I'm looking forward to them really pushing things out soon.
One last question too, I'm real curious about, do we worry about a repeat of that? Because right now we're talking about criminal justice reform. Before, it was the way we unpacked or discussed criminal justice was being tougher on crime. And so do we worry about a return to those days, or do you think that we've learned lessons from what happened, say, for example, in the mid-'90s to the late '90s and on? So now we're a bit more, you know, the popular, you know, folks on both sides of the ideological aisle are a bit more sensitive now to how we manage our criminal justice system.
I think people are a bit more sensitive, but at the same time, our whole culture was tough on crime, is tough on crime. And, you know, I was watching the NBA playoffs, and there was a doorbell manufacturer technology company that came out, and it's kind of like a video doorbell type thing, and the whole premise of of that entire ad was you need to get tough. And inspiring fear in people, and that's just part of the culture, and people are capitalizing on it. And like this doorbell technology company should be saying you need to be smarter about things instead of like inciting fear and so forth. Right. But it's just a natural part of our culture, and that's what we have to get around. So I think that we can get there. One last point is, being in this world, sometimes you think that you've made more progress than you've actually done, because that's kind of what you see and what you hear. But this issue, and this is why it's important for any, again, future president, to really set that vision out of how we're going to look at our safety in this country and who we're going to rely on to provide that safety. Do we rely just on the police, or do we rely on all of us and create opportunities for all of us to create situations where we don't have to worry about safety, and do that in all communities as well?
All right. Ed Chung is Vice President of Criminal Justice here at the Center for American Progress. He's here with us at the 2019 Ideas Conference here at the Center for American Progress. Go to AmericanProgress.org for more information on that. I'm Charles Ellison. You can catch me at Ellison Report, #RealityCheck, and also on WURD for the live Reality Check broadcast. We'll talk to you soon.
Now, a traffic update on Word Radio.
It's a pretty miserable commute on the Philly roads. This traffic report is sponsored by Dutch Wonderland. On the Schuylkill eastbound jam traffic, 202 into Belmont. Again, the Boulevard to the Vine Expressway. Then you're jammed 28th Street to Passyunk with a disabled vehicle that's been cleared. Westbound on the Schuylkill Expressway, that is crawling from University out to the Vine Expressway. Then you're jammed from Montgomery to Belmont. Again, Gladwin out to 476. On the Vine Expressway, eastbound, you're barely moving. 76 across to 95. Westbound jams from the Ben Franklin Parkway into the Schuylkill Merge. 95 northbound, that's stop and go Naaman's Road to the Commodore Barry Bridge. Jams again from Broad Street to Bridge Street, and southbound 95 is jamming Bridge Street down at Girard and 420 to 320. Blue Route 476 northbound's heavy getting on at 95. Southbound jams St. David's all the way down to Media Swarthmore. And on the Boulevard northbound, stop and go traffic the Schuylkill Expressway into Broad Street. Walt Whitman Bridge eastbound is heavy into Jersey. That's because 42 southbound jams the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. Stop and go on 676 southbound approaching 42. On 295 heading southbound, it is stop and go from 73 into 30 with a disabled tractor trailer on the shoulder. And through Maple Shade, 73 remains closed both ways between Main Street and Stiles Avenue because of flooding.
Dutch Wonderland, where it's playtime, showtime, and always family time. Get discount tickets when you stay overnight at Old Mill Stream Campground. Book your reservations today at oldmillstreamcampground.com.
For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a Word weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Tammy Souza.
Overnight, we're looking at the possibility of isolated showers and thunderstorms. We still have a first alert in effect through midnight for the possibility of some localized flooding in the areas that have already seen so much rain. You'll wake up near 70 degrees in the morning. It'll be a humid day with a chance of an early morning shower, then clearing to sunshine, setting us up for what could be a spectacular weekend ahead. You can get the weather anytime you like. Just download our free NBC 10 app.
We see you and we want to help. Don't give up hope. West Health System is here to support you in your recovery. Our innovative Passages program will help walk your teen out of their addiction and into a brighter future. For more information, call 215-456-2626 and visit our website at www.drwes.org. West Health System, providing hope in our communities.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the Mattress Man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy, Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
Support independent black media and join the Forward movement now at 215-425-7875 or visit wordradio.com.
Open calendar. What's my schedule looking like?
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an emergency flash flood between Park and First Street.
What? No, that doesn't work. I'm busy then. Decline. Decline.
Floods don't exactly work around your schedule. Disasters don't plan ahead. But you can. It starts with talking to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. So don't wait, communicate. Visit readypa.org. Brought to you by readypa.org, FEMA, and the Ad Council.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
Welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Also watching us live on Word TV, youtube.com/onWURD, also WordRadio.com for the live stream, Word app as well, if you'd like to take us wherever you go. Also, there is there's more flash flood warnings in effect. So we do see gray clouds in the distance, as do many in the Philadelphia area, in the WURD listening area. So please be safe out there with all this flooding that's happening, that's going on. Once again, you can call us at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. I had a very insightful conversation with Ed Chung at the Center for American Progress about issues related to criminal justice, and so I very much appreciate his time recently in Washington, D.C. at the Center for American Progress's Ideas Conference. So we'll be doing a lot more of those. We'll be presenting a lot more of that content, exclusive interviews from the nation's capital on Reality Check on WURD there in Washington. So WURD does have a presence in the nation's capital. There's no other black radio station outside of Washington, D.C. that has that kind of presence in the nation's capital, and so we do that here on Reality Check. WURD does have that presence through Reality Check, through a lot of the work that I do. Continue to go to @Ellison Report, also hashtag Reality Check for more there. We'll read a couple of the tweets that are there. And don't forget, next Friday, June 28th, you want to come party with the Word family, by the way, and that's going to be happening. That's Friday, June 28th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for the annual Food and Wellness Festival. That's right. That's going to be at the Fresh Grocer of Monument Road, 4160 Monument Road. One of my favorite Fresh Grocer spots, by the way. They make some fantastic, magnificent hoagies, by the way. I think I might have had my first Fresh Grocer hoagie, courtesy of Troy Wilmore one time. And so have gone back on several quiet occasions ever since. But we're going to be broadcasting live from there with all your favorite hosts for an entire afternoon of family fun, food, and great health information. There'll be Zumba. So for those Zumba lovers, those Zumba aficionados, definitely we'll be jamming with some Zumba out there, breaking a sweat. I'm sure it'll be hot and humid like it has been many Philly days this spring heading into summer. Also, chair yoga led by Daybreak host Halana, a healing drum circle. Also have a kids zone, which will have the usual face painting, stilt walkers. They call them mocha jumbes, and like in Carnival. So like in the Caribbean, like the stilt walkers. So yeah, but anyway, also a bouncy house. And let's not forget our annual Best Barbecue contest. And the fun continues at 5 p.m. for a very special Black Music Month happy hour mixer from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. I suspect our very own Professor Aaron Smith will be there for that. He'll be leading that, of course. I had the pleasure, I was watching a video of him recently from about a month ago, freestyling at an event that we did in conjunction with The Root. This will be the final day to start or renew your forward membership at the special early bird rate of just $75. So you want to get there early to the Fresh Grocer Monument Road, 4160 Monument Road, to start or renew your forward membership at the festival, and you can get your swag on site. Now that's all happening Friday, June 28th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Fresh Grocer Monument Road, 4160 Monument Road. And we'll also have a Word Black Music Month happy hour mixer from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So you want to bring the whole family. That's, also that's your final day. June 28th is your final day to start or renew your forward membership at the special early bird rate of just $75. It's normally $90, so you're about to save $15 if you do it by June 28th, and you do it at the Fresh Grocer Monument Road. We're happy to see you there. Also want to thank our sponsors, Moravia Home Health, AARP, Pennsylvania Lottery, Dedicated Home Health, Brown Superstores, Ers, Dietz & Watson, Amoroso's, and Canada Dry. Also, Philadelphia Energy Authority, Philadelphia Technical Training, A Place Like Home, Chiropractic Dynamics, Mary Kay Plus Gift Baskets, My Independence at Home. Let's open up those phone lines, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's go to Sadie and Sharon Hill, who's calling in for a Reality Check. Sadie, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Mr. Ellison. How are you?
All right, good, good. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, listening to the news, my sentiment is that they're off to the races.
Mm-hmm.
We're hearing about Joe Biden, what he said, and how it's been picked apart, how some people say, okay, he meant this, others are saying, no, he meant that. And this is tiring, simply because people are going to say things. You know, then they try and backtrack it, or whatever it is the news media says they should need to do. Well, they should apologize, this, that, and the other.
Right.
You know what? The bottom line is, I think we need to, and a lot of people don't do that. They go by what the newscasters say. Make up our own mind. How important is what he said to me? What does that mean to me?
Right.
For me, the bottom line is almost he can say pretty much whatever he wants. I think he's the only candidate that can beat Trump. And that's what's foremost in my mind.
Who's that? Who do you think can beat Trump again? Who's that?
I believe he's the one.
Who's that? I couldn't hear you.
Joe Biden.
Oh, you feel Joe Biden is the one?
Yes. And the reason being is once all the candidates begin to, put their name in the hat, so to speak, about what they wanted to do, a couple of people that called WURD stated, first of all, one person said, well, first of all, they're not going to nominate another black man. They have President Obama, and that's enough for us. Then somebody else called and said, well, they're not going to nominate or they're not going to elect a woman because Hillary didn't make it. So everyone has their own ideas, it seems like, about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and with whom. I look at Biden's experience. I look at a lot of things that pretty much he's done, and he's speaking about his experiences. I've heard someone say that nobody likes, or not nobody, but the East Coast doesn't like Kamala Harris because of A, B, C, and D. So there's a lot of information. We don't know whether it's misinformation. There's sound bites going back and forth, and it can wear you out. I'm trying to stay abreast of everything that's going on, and I'm listening to all sides. I love the idea that Cory Booker would like to put forth about every child that's born getting $1,000. By the time they're 18 or so, they would have $50,000 or $60,000.
Right.
One show I watched.
Right. That's that baby bonds concept that actually Professor Derek Hamilton up at the New School had created, and we had Derek Hamilton on here about a year ago. We need to bring him back if he's not too busy with the presidential campaigns. But Derek Hamilton's baby bonds idea has been making the rounds, particularly with candidates like Cory Booker.
I don't know. I just wondered. Now they're talking about, okay, everybody's hyped up about the, next week. When they're talking about...
Oh, the debates? Yeah, 2 days of debates.
And they're talking about nobody's excited. I don't need somebody to excite me to get my vote.
Right.
I want to know what their plan is.
Yeah.
And I need to feel that, okay, they can execute that plan, but I still have to look at the reality of all of these, 54% of white women that voted for Trump and Trump put him over the hump. So you have to look, I think, at all scenarios.
Yeah, you do.
What is real, what is not, and make the decision for yourself.
Right.
Right now, I am, and I know it's going to go through the weekend, just tired of hearing it. They play it on all of the stations, and they reiterate it, regurgitate it over and over and over. Move on to something else. Talk about what's going on in our land.
Right. Sometimes we can't get so caught up in those, in that type of gossip, because that's what it really boils down to after all. We can get so caught up in that gossip that we bypass those really important issues that we need to talk about, the things that are really affecting people. So I completely agree with you there, Ms. Sadie. Hey, listen, I have to let you go because we're heading into a break. We're heading into the 6 o'clock hour. Supposed to be joined by Santita Jackson. She's supposed to be coming up next. But also, the phone lines are open. You'll be able to talk with Santita Jackson as well at 215-634-8065. We'll continue with this conversation, parts of that conversation I was just having with Sadie out of Sharon Hill. 215-634-8065. 866-361-0900. here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Word family, mark your calendars and join me, Brother Shamari, for Friday, June 28th for the WURD Wellness and Food Festival, taking place at Fresh Grocer Monument Road. That's 4160 Monument Road. While you're there, start or renew your 4WURD membership on site and get your exclusive membership swag bag, including your very own WURD baseball cap. I definitely want one of those, right in your very own hands. Don't wait until the festival. You can do that now. Start or renew your 4WURD membership at any time between now and June 28th to take advantage of our $75 early bird special. Join the 4WURD movement today so you can protect and preserve independent black media and get your health on. We'll see you on June 28th.
The Shamari Show. Fridays 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. on Word Radio.
And streaming live on WordRadio.com and the Word Radio app.
Bachelor Brothers Funeral Services, proudly serving families in 3 locations: Trenton, New Jersey, Broad Street in North Philly, and Garrett Road near West Philly. A tradition of excellence, a promise of care. BachelorBrothers.com or call Bachelor Brothers at 610-713-5560.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the mattress man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
Now, with more clarity, this is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Streaming live at wordradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word app as well. We are waiting on Santita Jackson, host of the Santita Jackson Show in Chicago on WCPT Radio in Chicago. So we'll be having her on shortly. But the phone lines are open, too. Phone lines will be open during this conversation with Santita. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, you can engage Santita on social media, on Twitter, at Santita J. Also at Santita J. Also at Rev J. Jackson. So she happens to be the daughter of the famed Reverend civil rights leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson, as well. Obviously done a lot of work with him over the years, of course. So she'll be joining us very shortly in a few moments. We have Sherry out of East Alney who's calling in for a reality check. Sherry, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good.
I have 2 comments. One about reparations. I think, and I do believe, that one of the best response for us to get reparations would be to use the same example that the people in Delaware used against the DuPont. I'd like to also say that the argument that old folks who held our old folks as slaves are now dead, and it's a dead issue, does not stand, because Africans were this country's first gross national product. We are the basis for all of their wealth. Mm-hmm. They used us without paying us a dime. We made them this country very, very wealthy. The other thing I'd like to
our ancestors did.
The other point I'd like to point out
yes, ma'am.
Is that I believe that if reparations should be something like, for the rest of our lives, no black person has to pay taxes on any level. Local, regional, state, federal, no taxes. Mm-hmm. That would be our reparation. And that the argument that there's so many black people who are unemployed, put them to work. We are making this country healthy again in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the water, the roadways, the bridges. Put them give them decent wages and let them contribute and keep their money, no taxation whatsoever. They used it in Delaware. That's the reason why people live in Delaware, tax-free. Nobody argues about that. And if we use that and look and examine that as a viable way to get reparations for everybody, from the time you're born until the time you die, of everybody who's of African descent,
right,
then I think that would be a very viable option. The other thing I like to say about Joe Biden, I disagree that he would be the best candidate. The people of this country want change. They don't want the old guard. He proved a couple days ago by his verbal comments that he still has that old way of thinking. His actions and behaviors are consistent with that. I do not think that him operating out of the idea that he's connected to Obama, the Clintons, or anybody else serves as a way for us to analyze exactly what's going on. One, because he promised change in this country. The only thing Joe Biden is promising is to go back to the old way, and nobody wants that anymore. We want change.
All right. No, Ms. Sherry, thanks so much, out of East Albany. Thanks so much for calling in. We appreciate that. Phone lines remain open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Also, we have now joining us Santita Jackson of the Santita Jackson Show, which is on WCPT Radio, 820 AM, Chicago's Progressive Talk. It's actually the largest progressive talk radio station in the country. Go to WCPT 820 or 820.com. But Santita Jackson at Santita J on social media, on Twitter more specifically. She joins us by phone. Santita, how are you doing?
How are you? It's wonderful to join you.
All right, it's wonderful joining you as well. So I had such a wonderful time with you earlier this morning on WCPT Radio, just for Reality Check Word listeners out there. So Santita had me on her show, and I said, you know what, Santita, you got some time this evening, so we need to make this more frequent. And I'm so happy. I really do appreciate that you made time for us this evening. So we have been having a conversation about, as we had this morning, about reparations, and I want to get your thoughts on that, particularly with that House hearing that took place yesterday. Very few Congressional Black Caucus members showing up. There was one other Congressional Black Caucus member that was there in the audience, Stacey Plaskett from the Virgin Islands. So I want to make that known. I'm just now finding that out, that she was quietly in the audience there as well. She showed up on the front page of the New York Times. But what's your thought on this? Is this more symbolism than substance, this exercise?
Well, I think that it is symbolism, but it is also substantive, because we have a debt that is owed to African Americans. I don't think that it has to come in the form of a check for every African descendant of American slaves. You know, I don't think that's it. Affirmative action was a form of reparations. Our HBCU system has been a form of reparations. Indeed, we started reparations a long time ago. They were disrupted by after Reconstruction, when poor white people felt threatened by the massive advances that African Americans were making at that time. So reparations is not new. Indeed, that is how Dr. King opened his I Have a Dream speech. The I Have a Dream was the climax of the speech. What he was talking about, the first thing he said at the seat of our government, is that you have bounced a check that you have written to me. And I refuse to believe that the vaults of opportunity are empty. So we have come to Washington, D.C. to collect what is due us. And I think that we need to stay right there. But at the same time, and we have to be, well, let me back up. We need to have an agenda about what it is that we're looking for. And saving our black schools to me is of prime importance. Getting the loan system together. I mean, we're losing Pell Grants. We can't do that. You need to change the Parent Plus loan system. There's some basic things that I think that we need to look for. Health care, You know, we have an agenda, education, public access to high-quality public education.
Right.
It's something that every American is entitled to. When my brother was in Congress, that was an amendment to the Constitution that he had written and something that he was ambitious to see passed because that is what our people are fighting for everywhere in every city, town, and hamlet all across the country. We want our children and we want to have access to opportunity. We're not asking for anyone to give us anything. We just want the opportunity to succeed, and we want the impediments toward our success or to our success removed.
So reparations could serve as a, sort of that banner brand name for a larger conversation on, or a national way, a cohesive, coherent way to talk about and also push, promote a targeted black agenda. We should be kind of looking at this as a moment to leverage that there's room for some inspiration and some mobilization here through this word, through this term reparations. It's not as simple as black folks getting a check.
Well, I think that we need to look at reparations as restoration, okay, which is spiritual and it's economic, because we need both. You know, slaves are not born, they're made. And so there have been breaks in the psyche and spirit of our people, but we keep coming back. And you know what? Look, I had a very interesting experience, Charles. Memorial Day weekend. I was taking an Uber. I was working that weekend, and I was running home because I had someplace else to go. And as I got out of the car, I said to the young black man, and he was a lovely young man, couldn't have been 30 years old, and he had a daughter who was about 6 or 7, and he was saying, you know, my daughter and her cousins, her 3 cousins were born on the same day. So I'm going to 4 parties this weekend, and I just congratulated him because he was very excited, and he was working so that he could afford to give his daughter and her cousins, you know, a little extra. And as I got out the car, I said, young man, did you know, and I wasn't being patronizing, he's young enough to be my child. I said, young man, do you know that Memorial Day was a holiday invented by black people? And he looked at me, and the expression of pride on his face, Charles, almost made me cry. I said, yes, you know, formerly enslaved black people saw that Union soldiers had been dumped into a mass grave without honor, and they pulled each soldier out and reburied each one of them individually and marched around the racetrack where they had been dumped. And that is how we started Memorial Day. And this young man was so filled with pride. He said, we did that? See, part of reparations is restoration. It's helping African Americans, black people, to understand that we built this country. We're not strangers here. People come here all the time, and they feel greater ownership in the American dream than we do. And we make the American dream real for everybody. So I don't discount the spiritual aspects of reparation and restoration now, but I also have to look at the economic. I'm talking to my brothers and sisters in Philadelphia, and I can't help but think of Reverend Leon Sullivan right now, who brought to Dr. King the idea of going from civil rights to silver rights. And these 2 mentors of my father got him when he was at seminary at the University of Chicago and pulled him into that. Because Dr. King said, now that we can sit at the lunch counter, if we don't have any money, what's the point? So it has to be a both and. Dr. King and Reverend Sullivan, they were ministers and they were also business-minded and they were also constitutionalists. They understood what the Constitution could mean. So I think we have to really have all of those things going at one time. We have to have an agenda.
Right.
We also have to understand that we need to be restored.
We're talking with Santita Jackson. If you're just now tuning in, she's here on Reality Check. She's also host of the newly launched Santita Jackson Show on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio WCPT, 820 AM in Chicago. It's also the largest progressive station in the country. And you can go to @SantitaJ as well on Twitter if you'd like to learn more about her and also engage her there. She's quite engaged on Twitter, on social media. She's joining us here on Reality Check. Also, Santita, sort of switching subjects or changing subjects here for a moment, there is a lot of talk about the Democratic presidential primary race, and especially about the perceived front runner, Joe Biden. And so it's a choice between, I had a caller right before, a listener right before you, who was saying that, I don't think he represents that change that everyone wants. That's going back to the old way of doing things. But it's a tricky choice there, right? Because people are also looking for someone who can defeat Donald Trump in the White House. So it's this choice between wanting change, wanting to do something historic, again, like we did in 2008, but also being a lot more practical and pragmatic and looking for the path of least resistance towards getting Donald Trump out of office.
Well, I think that there's more to getting Donald Trump out of office. We have to be very clear that he has much more support than people want to state, and certainly the mainstream media. I think that they have been misdirecting us. 2/3 of Donald Trump's, number one, he got the majority of the majority.
That's right.
Of the country. Okay, so let's be clear on that. Also, 2/3 of his voters make $50,000 a year or more.
Mm-hmm.
1/3 make $50,000 to $100,000 a year. Another third make $100,000 a year or more. So the people who are on the backdrop at his rallies, that's not a representative sampling of the people who support him. A lot of our white friends are not telling us the truth, because he's become so radioactive. But they are going into that voting booth, and they're voting for him. So I look at him, and while I think it's important to get him out, I know it's at least as important to take over the Senate.
Yeah.
It's at least as important to hold on to the majority in the House and increase it. It's at least as important to capture the state legislatures. We lost more than 1,000 seats starting in 2008.
That's right. Under
We've got
Obama.
to recapture that. As we are going into the 2020 census, which is when we're going to be recounted all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So while people are looking at the White House, you better look at your house and all the houses from state to state to state, because that's where the change is going to take place, and the change is here. Look, we just elected Lori Lightfoot, first African-American woman to become mayor of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
What's really interesting about her, she's a fascinating woman who I like very much. We have 50 wards in Chicago, Charles. She won every ward. She started her campaign when Rahm Emanuel was still in office, and we thought he was about to launch his reelection bid. So she actually was running against Rahm Emanuel, having been appointed by him to various commissions. She'd been appointed to various commissions by the previous mayor. But there was something that she saw as she was atop all of these top commissions, and the corruption made her sick. So she looked like Doña Quixote out here running when she announced she was going to run against Rahm Emanuel, even though we knew behind Laquan McDonald he was going to have some problems.
Right.
Big problems. She just started running. And voila, the woman, the black woman who she defeated, who was really the most powerful, up to that point, the most powerful politician in the state of Illinois, because she is head of the Cook County Board of Commissioners. What is that?
Right.
That is the board that gives Chicago its budget. This woman is Tony Preckwinkle's on top of all that money, and she's head of the Democratic Party for the county. So, look, it's that kind of change that people are hungry for, and they're not too particular about who's going to give it to them.
And I guess it's not even just a sense of change, right? It's a sense of who's the most energetic candidate. Real quick to your point about the Senate, right? Because Republicans must be seeing something, or at least those rank and file, those grassroots Republicans, those folks who quietly vote behind the scenes for Donald Trump while they tell us another thing at the water cooler. They must be seeing something like in places like Alabama, because Roy Moore just announced that he's running for Senate again in 2020 against Doug Jones. So something, he wouldn't be doing that if he didn't think he had a chance again, despite all the controversy surrounding him back in 2017.
He's controversial to you and me, not to the people who supported him.
That's right, and it's in Alabama.
See, that's why you have to step on the other side of this thing. And I don't, on my show, as you well know, I don't disparage President Trump, because when you disparage President Trump, you're disparaging his supporters. I'm not feeling that. I will deal with him on policy, and I'm just going to stay right there. And maybe because I grew up with in a public family with a very public and very controversial father. That turns me off. I like to keep the issues where they are, as Dr. King and my father often, Dr. King used to say it, my father often says it, stay right here. Stay on the issues. Let us not lose focus. And don't make it personal. This is about policy. So, because remember, Stacey Abrams should be the governor of Georgia.
Right.
But even though her votes were purged and basically stolen from her, remember, 3/4 of white women in Georgia did not vote for her. She did not get the majority of the white male vote either. Same thing happened to Andrew Gillum. So a lot of people say a lot of things, and then they go into that booth, and they have their say.
Right.
So what we've got to do is register our young people to vote. The high school seniors who are coming out now and who will be coming out next year, massive voter registration campaign. That's what you need. Hundreds of thousands of students are coming out of school. Those are voters, and I think it's in the millions. Those are voters who can be voting in 2020. And you've got to focus not just on Donald Trump, because his personality and because he's a very exciting guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I mean, look, he is a showman, but don't focus on that. If we gain the White House and lose the State House, we have been jammed in terms of the census. We cannot afford that.
That's right.
Either.
That's right. We've been talking with Santita Jackson, host of the Santita Jackson Show. Santita, unfortunately, I have to let you go because we have someone else who's going to be coming on after the break. I was hoping I'd get a little extra time with you, but that's okay. We're going to have you back.
I'm going to have you back on my show.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got a little strategic alliance, a partnership going on here, and I love the fact that we finally got Santita Jackson on. I consider her not just a colleague, but a mentor as well. And we definitely had that connection going on between Chicago and Philly, so you'll hear her a lot more here on Reality Check. And congratulations to you, by the way, on your new show on WCPT 820 in Chicago, at Santita J on social media, on Twitter. Thanks so much, Santita. You have a wonderful weekend.
God bless you. Can't we have you back on my show, because you know we're together.
Yes, we are. All right. Take care now.
God bless you. Love you so much.
You the same. All right, you too. All right, bye-bye. All right, let's take a very quick break. And when we come back on the other side, Ulysses Butch Slaughter is up next. Let's talk about the Lights on Chester. Lights on Chester coming up on June 21st, tomorrow from 6 to 9 p.m. So Ulysses Slaughter on to talk a little bit more about that here on Reality Check. We're going to take a quick break here on 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WordRadio.com, Word app. We'll be right back.
It's Lights on Chester this Friday, June 21st at the MJ Free Theater in Chester, Pennsylvania. Join the festivities for a free arts and cultural festival celebrating the past, present, and future of Overtown. Be there to watch the entire Illuminate Chester film series and enjoy the complimentary hors d'oeuvres, entertainment, and networking with local business owners. The street celebration begins at 6 p.m. and the film screening begins at 7 p.m. RSVP today at pahumanities.org/lightsonchester.
Get your money straight. Get my money right. With Solomon Jones and Akbar Hassan.
Fridays on Wake Up with Word.
7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Hosted by Solomon Jones. Exclusively on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Streaming live on WordRadio.com and on the Word Radio app.
Turn up summer with McDonald's Minute Maid slushies and their delicious flavors like blue raspberry, sweet peach, and fruit punch. Only at participating McDonald's.
This is Word Radio, independent black media.
Word Radio and Love Now Media celebrate 11 days of love stories by honoring acts of love that paid it forward. Blue Kind is an artist, entrepreneur, and the owner of Franny Lou's Porch.
When I was pregnant with my first child, it was really hard because my mother is not here. She passed away when I was 14, and my father lives in another country. So, I'm having a baby by myself without my brothers or anybody in Philadelphia, and I just kind of was sitting with that reality of not having that familial support. But when my son was born, a therapist that I was seeing at the time, they suggested that I ask an elder couple to be an adoptive grandparent. And I thought that was really cool and a really innovative idea because I don't have parents around. So this couple came up to my mind like right away when she asked me, and it was one of my good friends at the time, their parents. I asked them if they would be interested in being my son's adoptive grandparents. And so my son is 7, and they show so much love to my son. And then I was pregnant with my daughter, and now they gained another grandchild, and I'm pregnant now. And they're like, we're going to have 3 grandchildren. And that to me is like really beautiful. But they look at me and they're like, we're going to get older. There's going to be a time where these grandchildren are going to help us as well. And now, when they get older, and we'll be there more for them, because what I'm realizing is the children are essential for our elders' health and well-being.
Love stories, because love fuels the work. Share your love story at wordradio.com or lovenowmedia.com. Love Now, pay it forward.
Get your money straight.
Get my money right.
With Solomon Jones and Akbar Hassan.
Fridays on Wake Up with Word.
7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Hosted by Solomon Jones. Exclusively on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app. Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio
and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check here on the home of Black Talk Media. It's wordradio.com, Word app. It is WURD, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Go to @EllisonReport, #Reality Check. We'll get your tweets later. Actually, joining us now is Ulysses Butch Slaughter. He's program manager of Chester Made, none other than Chester, PA Made. He's here to talk about the Lights on Chester Arts and Cultural Festival that's coming up tomorrow. It's tomorrow, June 21st, from 6 to 9 p.m. at the M.G. Freed Theater at 515 Avenue of the States in Chester, PA. And so the street celebration starts at 6, and then there's a film screening at 7 p.m. Ulysses is on to talk with us about exactly what Lights on Chester is. How are you doing, sir? Ulysses, can you hear us?
I can't hear you. I had you on mute. I'm sorry. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm good. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And talk about this. What's Lights on Chester? I'm really curious about this. And Chester is one of those last places you think of for arts and cultural festival. I mean, I'm just being sort of real talk here and straight up, but this seems to be a rather elaborate affair.
Well, I guess it depends on who you're talking to. I think there are people who know that arts and culture and painting and music and jazz, that's in the blood of Chester. So depending on who you're talking to, they know better. They know that people like Ethel Waters came through here. They know Bill Haley and the Comets were here. They know that people like Brent Staples of the New York Times were here. They know that Andy Turner were here. They know. So, this is new for some people. It's old for a lot of other people. And I agree with you when you say, and I think what I hear is that people have developed a misunderstanding about what Chester is all about. And that's what this project is all about. It's about, let's get the narrative straight here. People used to say back in the 90s, y'all must have forgot.
Right.
They're saying that here about Chester. They must have forgot. Chester has been the home of a lot of things over the years. And when we say Lights on Chester, we mean just that. We mean turn the lights on Chester, because some people are really getting it wrong, and we want to set the record straight.
All right. And so this is a free festival, arts and cultural festival. There's a street celebration, film screening. Talk about exactly what's happening at Lights on Chester. So when you mean film screening, like there's an actual film that will be shown, and is it a here I think we're going to be watching the entire Illuminate Chester film series, and so what's that about?
And so I want to mention that, by the way, I'm sitting here with the executive director of the Pennsylvania Humanities Council, Lori Zier. She's going to chime in at some point.
Please do.
But it was
Thank you.
the Pennsylvania Humanities Council and PICO. PICO was the literal energy funding behind this series of films that we put together that go and look at some of the more important issues and important subject matters in the city of Chester.
Mm-hmm.
One of those that people in Philadelphia could relate to is Penn's Landing. We did a film about Penn's Landing and the history of Penn's Landing. Most people in this region, when they think of Penn's Landing, they think about Columbus Boulevard in Philadelphia. They think about that Penn's Landing.
Right.
Penn's Landing, Chester, precedes Penn's Landing in Philadelphia. And so there is a spot here in Philadelphia, in Chester, called Penn's Landing. And we talk about, in one of these films, that place in Chester called Penn's Landing, and the place even in Newcastle called Penn's Landing. So one of the films looks at that. Another film looks at an amazing guy who worked for PICO. His name was Walker Carter. He was born and raised in Chester. He was the first black track coach at Widener, the first black football coach at Widener. He had an unfortunate accident happen back in 2017, I believe it was. He was a worker for PICO, and he wound up being electrocuted on the job.
Yeah.
And so we tell the story of how much influence he had as a person light here in the city of Chester. So that's one of our stories. And then we do two about the Deschamps Museum, also in the city of Chester. This museum predates the Philadelphia Art Museum, and it is an amazing, it was an amazing institution, and still in the city of Chester, Widener holds a lot of the fantastic art that is attached to Deschamps. So we're telling those four stories, as well as the final one that looks at Overtown, what they called Overtown, downtown Chester, which used to be the place for everybody in the region. Philadelphia, Wilmington, Delaware, everybody came to Chester during the industrial period to shop here in Chester. And so Lights on Chester is about bringing people back to Chester to see how it has evolved and how it is aiming to be better than it ever has been.
We're talking with Ulysses Butch Slaughter. He's project manager of Chester Made, and he's talking with us about the Lights on Chester Arts, Culture, and Arts Festival that's going to be taking place in Chester, PA, at the MJ Free Theater, 515 Avenue of the States in Chester, PA. That's going to be tomorrow, June 21st, from 6 to 9 p.m. There's a street celebration that starts at 6. Film screening is at 7. It's also being made possible by PICO, the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage, and also the Pennsylvania Humanities Council as well. And so you can get more information at pahumanities.org/Lights on Chester, and also RSVP there as well to get attendance or to get a seat at the MJ Free Theater in Chester, PA. pahumanities.org/Lights on Chester for more information. Also to RSVP there as well. Ulysses, I'm also curious as far as this Arts and Culture Festival, and your Chester is right next door to what a lot of people feel is a major center of global arts and culture and music, and it has its own sound. It's Philadelphia, and so does that always become challenging? To have this big, massive, big sister or big brother right next door to you, with its big arts and culture scene overshadowing what Chester has always had to offer, is what it's trying to offer now? Or do you find creative ways to leverage that, to collaborate with that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's complementary possibilities all the time. I mean, the very fact that we're on the air at WURD speaks to the power of collaboration. We did something a little while ago with Sarah Lomax Reese here in Chester called Policing the Truth. So we had Eric Grimes, good friend of mine, Brother Shamari. It's always here. So there's always possibilities in the actuality of collaboration constantly. And I think we feed one another very well. Chester is a little bit off the beaten path, as people like to say, but it's a great place to come experience a very vibrant arts and culture community. And I think sometimes people want to get away from a big place like Philadelphia and go see something a little bit different. And we've got some amazing things happening here on the Avenue. And this is what Lights on Chester is all about. People having an opportunity to look at something that is a diamond in the rough. And this is what we'll be showing tomorrow.
Just go to pahumanities.org/lights-on-Chester. I thought you were saying that you wanted to. Is it someone who's with the Pennsylvania Humanities Council who's with you, the executive director?
She is sitting right here. That's Lori Zier.
Yeah, I certainly am.
Hi there, Lori. How are you doing?
Hi.
All right, excellent, excellent. I know you had a few comments as well about this Lights on Chester festival that's coming up tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're a statewide organization, but we're right here in Chester because we believe that the lights of arts and culture are in communities across Pennsylvania. And it's not just in Philly, it's not just in Pittsburgh. It's in Chester, it's in Carlisle, it's in Williamsport, and Meadville. You look at any community and you're going to see the talent and the strength and the resilience of artists and entrepreneurs, just like you see here in Chester, that are getting together and making changes in their community with everybody on the street to make that positive movement forward.
What sort of support is PHC providing for this Lights on Chester festival? Any specific sort of logistical or operational support, monetary support that the Pennsylvania Humanities Council is providing to make this possible, Lori?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're honored to be the state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. So we have a commitment and a responsibility as a State Humanities Council to the state of Pennsylvania. But we serve as the glue, as the platform, as the catalyst to bring people together to move these things forward all across the state. So we not only bring funds of our own, but we also bring others like PICO and the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage and bring attention to places like Chester and other communities across Pennsylvania to do this good work.
Laura, you know, real quick question for you here, too, since you're part of a national network, a statewide network, and I'm real curious, are small cities, small towns, is that where the arts and culture or the new arts and culture action is at, right? Because we always think of the big cities, the big urban centers like a Philadelphia, for example, or New York City, or others as those places, those preferred places for arts and culture interface and collaboration and activity. But are you finding that that's the new trend? It's like those small cities, those small towns, as Ulysses said, those places that are off the beaten path?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a long time trend, and there's a lot of attention to gentrification, that artists go into communities and things change, and then outsiders come in and make investments, and suddenly folks in the community can't afford to even to live there. But what is happening in Chester and in so many different communities is that residents, it's folks who live here and who care about the community, are buying up those properties, and they're out in front of the new story and the new developments to reclaim, repurpose, rebuild their communities. And that's what's unique, I believe, in Chester, that it is artists and it's entrepreneurs that are from Chester that are at the front of this movement. And Devin Walls at MJ Frade Theater is a great example of that.
I just want to add one other thing, if I can.
Sure, go ahead, Ulysses. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really important to note that oftentimes when people are talking and kind of throwing terms like Renaissance out there, I think it's important for people to understand that it really is an organic kind of, not just homegrown, that's part of it, but it's not just about homegrown, but support of the homegrown and the real authenticity of people who live and care about a place. This isn't just about, you know, the next franchise coming onto this block. And that's what a lot of people hope for. They want the big businesses to come in. And it's the small businesses that really give real life to these efforts. It's not about getting the next big brand to come over here and be an anchor. There's so many anchors around here that make up for the lack of the big anchor that nobody would ever know. And it's important that small communities like this one turn their lights on. Get the shine that many other places often get.
You know, it's such a fascinating conversation, right, too, you know, especially when you think about the history of Chester. And so, Ulysses, my next question is about, you know, who's participating in that cultural resurgence, revival that's taking place there in Chester that'll be reflected in the Lights on Chester Arts and Cultural Festival that will be taking place tomorrow at the MJ Free Theater, 515 Avenue of the States in Chester, PA, from 6 to 9 p.m. So is it primarily, you know, as we talk about these demographic shifts and changes that big cities and even small cities and towns are going through with gentrification and other trends and shifts, is it primarily the residents, the original residents of Chester, who are participating in this? And two, you know, Chester also has a very challenging history and a challenging present that is dealing with the history that's, you know, that's dealing with, struggling, grappling with issues of race, racism, the police brutality and misconduct, for example, but also dealing in the present with environmental justice issues that are at the forefront of it. So are some of those issues and challenges reflected in that art?
No question about it. And I think it's truly an intergenerational effort. It is an effort that brings a kind of collaboration of people from different backgrounds. And see, that in and of itself is part of the art. Art is not just about the stuff that you see on walls. It's not just about the buildings. It's not just about the physical stuff. It really is about the art of collaboration. It's about the art of negotiation. It's those things that precede the actual development of the other things. And it takes a lot of different people to sit down and strategically synthesize all of those different energies from all over the place. It takes schools. It takes politicians. It takes the artists. It takes the youth. It takes everybody. I mean, it really does require an intergenerational, multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
And that's good, because what it does is that it creates more possibilities. If we focus this just on one group, therein lies the limitation. So the more people we get involved, the more possibilities there are. And that's what this is all about. People will see poetry tomorrow. They'll hear singers. They'll see great art. They will hear comedians. They'll hear all kinds of things when they show up tomorrow from different people of different backgrounds and generations.
Mm-hmm. All right. We've been talking with Ulysses Butch Slaughter. He's the project manager of Chester Made, which is facilitating the Lights on Chester Arts and Cultural Festival. That's tomorrow, June 21st, 6 to 9 p.m. You want to go to the street celebration at 6 p.m. You might want to get there early as well, particularly with traffic. And I'm sure there are a lot of other folks listening in, and they're getting really excited about Chester right now. And so they want to go to the MJ Free Theater at 515 Avenue of the States in Chester, PA. But for more information, you might want to RSVP first as you're listening to this, and right after, pahumanities.org/lightsoncchester, pahumanities.org/lightsoncchester. And Lucy's also joined by, speaking of the Pennsylvania Humanities Council, joined by its Executive Director, Lori Zier, who also talked with us for a few minutes. Thank you both for this, and really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. Lights on Chester. I gotta look at my schedule as well. I'm just now finding out about this today. So real quick too, are there other Lights on Chester activities that will be planned throughout the summer?
Oh, absolutely. You know, right now we're working to do some builds. We have a makerspace here. It's a pop-up makerspace where the community gets together and builds things.
Okay.
And we're building some things in Overtown. So look for
Excellent.
more.
Excellent. All right. Thank you both, Ulysses Slaughter and also Lori Zier with the Pennsylvania Humanities Council. Thanks again to you both, and good luck on Lights on Chester tomorrow.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Take care. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll be wrapping up this Thursday edition of Reality Check with phone lines open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We'll be right back.
Listen to Word Radio on the go with the Word Radio app. Search for WURD in your favorite app store today and take us with you wherever you go. Stay connected to Word Radio, independent Black media.
Independence is a precious thing, but now and then everyone needs a little help. Isn't it good to know that getting the help you need doesn't mean drastically changing your life? Always Best Care Philly and Delaware is there to give you just the amount of help you need, from a few hours a week to as many hours as you need, handling everything from light housekeeping to meals, and so much more. Don't struggle. Contact Always Best Care and see how easy it is to age in place. Call us at 302-409-3710 or visit alwaysbestcaredelaware.com.
I would like to play a little tune I just composed not so long ago.
Hey family,
Do you like hearing the best jazz selections aired by 3 of the best jazz announcers in Philadelphia? Well, tune in to 96.1 FM, 96.1 FM, and 900 AM, WURD Radio, independent black media for Freedom Sounds of Jazz. Freedom Sounds of Jazz. Hear Freedom Sounds of Jazz 10 p.m. Fridays with your hosts in rotation, Aquila, Jonathan Bay, and David Fritz. That's 10 p.m. Friday nights on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM, independent black media.
Be heard. Want another way to join the conversation?
Follow us on social media
Using the hashtag onWURD.
Be heard.
Stay connected to Word Radio.
Independent black media.
Word family, is me, Solomon Jones, host of Wake Up with Word, and I want to see you on June 28th at the Wellness and Food Festival at the Fresh Grocer, 4160 Monument Road. It's going to be a blast. All of us are going to be out there. We want to see you, talk to you, and I'm going to have some of my books as well. So join us right there at 4160 Monument Road for the Wellness and Food Festival. And please, whatever you do, make sure you join the 4Word movement today and get your membership or renew between now and June 28th to take advantage of our $75 early bird special. We'll see you on June 28th at the Wellness and Food Festival. Be there.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. It is the Thursday edition. It's the end of the Reality Check week. We only got 15 minutes left, a little bit under 15 minutes left in the Reality Check week. We are at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. I see gray clouds out there. I see dark clouds here and there. It's spotty. There'll be spotty showers. Still risk of flooding in certain places throughout the greater Philadelphia region, throughout the Delaware Valley area. You'd also heard that there is a state of emergency that's been called in South Jersey. Our friends and family and colleagues, our partners right across the bridge in South Jersey are going through an official statewide South Jersey regional-wide state of emergency that's been called by the governor of New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy, instituting that today. So the flooding is that severe. So I'm not exactly sure how the city of Philadelphia is preparing or responding to this flooding. But people, you're starting to hear just, through various conversations and anecdotal evidence that the flooding has become more than a nuisance for many residents within the greater Philadelphia area. So, and that flooding promises, based on current trends and based on what we're seeing in the weather patterns, that flooding promises to get much worse as we head into a very humid, soggy, wet summer. So, and once again, also being a very hot summer as well. So there's just a lot of various issues that we're going to have to deal with, going to have to grapple with and respond to during this long summer. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, as we were talking about earlier, we had Santita Jackson on. You heard that correctly. Roy Moore, the infamous Roy Moore, the state judge out of Alabama who had ran that infamous and also legendary U.S. Senate race in Alabama. And then you had, for the first time in about 36 years, you had a Democrat, Doug Jones, win that seat back. Yes, Roy Moore is running again. He announced that he is running for the Senate again, despite opposition actually from national and even a few state Republican leaders who were just don't want to get tainted again, but who were left very bruised after that 2017 Senate race, a very ugly 2017 Senate race, and also many allegations coming out about Roy Moore and about his, apparently allegations that he was sexually assaulting or sexually molesting young teenage girls as an adult. So, and something that he did for many years, and apparently many Alabama voters did not care, particularly white evangelicals in the state of Alabama. But that was one of those instances. That 2017 was a banner year, particularly as it relates to the black woman vote, black women coming out strong in states like Alabama and Virginia. Doug Jones won primarily because of how strong and aggressive the black women vote came out, but just the black vote in general in Alabama. Let's just talk about that because it takes two to make a whole black vote. So black men, black women came out strong in places like Alabama, also Virginia. But we did notice once we looked at the exit polling, very strong upticks in voter participation from black women in those states. So let's see if they can do it a second time and then give Doug Jones a full 6-year term, because Doug Jones was actually coming in there at a moment where where the term had been truncated. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on that and seeing how voters on either side of the partisan aisle will be motivated. Let's go to the phone lines at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to Gary in Southwest, who's calling in for a reality check.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, what's happening?
Charles, I was listening to your guest, man, about, you talking about reparations, and I hear a lot of people talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, it's not about money. We can't put a price on it. Like maybe we get some free education, better schools. I differ with that all the way around. We give money to some people in the Middle East, billions of dollars every year.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of our social issues are because of the slavery and the abuse and the torture that our ancestors endured.
Right.
And those people who have that generational wealth was all built on the backs of my ancestors. So, yes, you need to write me a check. You need to cancel all my debt.
Yeah.
You need to do whatever is necessary. But you know what, Charles? In reality, there is nothing they can really do that's really going to satisfy me for what they did. But they need to make an honest and sincere effort.
And take a dramatic step.
McConnell, man, that dude, he just showed these racist, man. And then that brother, I don't even want to say his name.
Tim Scott, senator out of South Carolina, Tim Scott said the same thing.
We always, we got these gatekeepers. And even here in this city, we have these gatekeepers that prevent our people from prospering. And we're going to have to really come together and really join forces to combat this. But they need to give us that check. They need to cancel every one of our debt. We shouldn't have to pay a dime to go to a higher institute of learning. But see, what happens is they play to those, even the poor whites that don't even get it. They're so racist. They don't get that these people in this higher echelon don't even care about them.
Right. But and to your point, Gary, real quick, because I think you make a good point. We do need to kind of come up with that. So it's time for proponents of reparations or folks who are leading that movement to refine the messaging, like to really refine it and mold and shape it into a business case, right? And this is what I mean by that. Like, for example, like what is the exact amount that's being sought after? What's the total amount? Is it $1 trillion? Is it $2 trillion? So that's first. That's that one amount. The business case also is similar to the business cases that were made when we bailed out the banks or bailed out the financial sector after the recession, or we bailed out the car companies. Like that was like a $50 billion bailout of General Motors, right? And that was a form of reparations, because that was reparations for trauma that was absorbed by major too big to fail industries as a result of something like recession, right? So that was reparations. They needed reparations. They went through a traumatic experience. So the federal government provided them with reparations. So, and they were too big to fail. So it's like if we let the financial sector fail, or if we let General Motors, or car companies like General Motors and Chrysler, if we let Detroit fail, there was this consensus that we let the American economy fail, that people will lose their jobs. Well, I think the business case now should be made for reparations. So you might start getting allies from unexpected places. And what I mean by the business case is start having a conversation about, okay, America, this is how this works out for you, and not just in terms of the moral case. Because they could care less about the moral case. They really could. Let's just be straight about that. But hey, imagine X amount of black people, was like 45 million black people. Imagine 45 million black people with extra money in their pockets, or with all their debt wiped out, right? Imagine how much of a stimulus that is in the economy. I mean, it really works out to that, particularly considering that black people are so central to the American consumption economy. So I think that's the next phase of this that's not happening, that could better articulate exactly what reparations is or how it could play out.
Hey, Charles, I just wanted to add this. You know, when we had Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, we had other towns, thriving towns like that.
Right.
This is the way I look at it. No hate against any other group. I watch the Asians. I watch all the other groups. They keep their money circulated. They go to their banks. We're the only ones who don't really do that. We give everybody else our money.
Yeah.
They get wealthy off of us, and they totally disrespect us.
Yeah.
You know.
But, you know, those other groups, they can go through the kind of trauma, the kind of psychological and cultural trauma that we went through. So, I mean, it's just, you understand what I'm saying? You know, to agree, you know, and so they sort of get a head start because, and there's just this certain level of business acumen and political maturity that we just haven't completely achieved yet as a people because of a lot of that trauma and those barriers that have been put up.
But you know what, Charles? A lot of those foreigners, I work with some of them, I've had to really have some deep conversations with them to straighten them out.
Yeah.
They come from the motherland and basically said that we were lazy. I can't tell you what I really said to them, but I kind of broke it down to them. I said,
I hear you.
Approach me and say that to me again. I said, first of all, some of your ancestors are the ones that helped sell us into slavery. I said, we built America, and they would not even allow, they talked about we weren't into education. I said, well, they wouldn't even allow us to pick up a book or think about looking at a book.
See, they don't know. They don't know because they're from majority black countries. That's one. And they don't have to deal with white people like we have to right here, right? And so, you know, the other thing is we took it on the chin for them so they could come over here.
Exactly.
I always tell them, I remind folks from the Caribbean and from Africa or from a lot of African countries, like, yo, listen, we took the hit so you can come over here and enjoy America. You know, like you can enjoy. I mean, let's be real, and they have to appreciate that. I'm not hating on them, and I think honestly, for us, really, but real talk on this, Gary, and I've said this before in this program, the ultimate solution for us heading into the 21st century, we're going to need to team up with the rest of the diaspora. Like seriously, we're going to need to team up. But they're going to have to recognize that we have to team up, and they have to recognize the sacrifices that we made for them. But real quick, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I'll let you wrap up.
Real quick. I'm in a group now, and we're talking. It's people from the Caribbean and Africa. It's a group, and that's what we're talking about now. We're having discussions on how we need to come together. So you're right on point with that, Charles. And thank you so much for allowing me to express myself.
No, thank you, Gary, always for listening in and calling in. Also, don't forget Word Family, Friday, June 28th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. It's the annual Word Food and Wellness Festival. This time, it's at the Fresh Grocer of Monument Road, right off City Line Avenue, 4160 Monument Road. We're broadcasting live with all of your favorite hosts for an entire afternoon of family fun, food, and great health information featuring Zumba, chair yoga. Chair yoga. How does chair yoga work? I got to see that. I got to see it to believe it. Chair yoga. Chair yoga led by Daybreak host Halan, because yoga is tough. Yoga is not a joke. So, like, I can imagine what it's like with a chair. A healing drum circle, a kiss zone featuring face painting, stilt walkers, otherwise known as AKA Mokojumbes, and a bouncy house. And let's not forget our annual Best Barbecue contest. And the fun continues at 5 p.m. for a very special Black Music Month happy hour mixer from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. This will be the final day to start or renew your 4WURD membership, June 28th. Mark your calendars. And that's going to be at the very special early bird rate of just $75. So you want to get there early to start or renew your 4WURD membership at the festival. And you can get your swag on site. It's happening Friday, June 28th. That's the next Friday, June 28th at the Fresh Grocer of Monument Road, 4160 Monument Road Festival from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. with the WURD Black Music Month happy hour mixer from 5 to 7 p.m. Just bring the whole family out. Want to thank Moravian Home Health, ARP, PA Lottery, Dedicated Home Health, Brown Superstores, Ers, Dietz & Watson, Amoroso's, and Canada Dry. Also the Philadelphia Energy Authority, Philadelphia Technical Training, A Place Like Home, Chiropractic Dynamics, Mary Kay Plus, Gift Baskets, My Independence at Home. So definitely looking forward to the Word Food and Wellness Festival coming up next Friday, June 28th. We'll see you there. Go to wordradio.com for more information. All right, that wraps this Thursday edition of Reality Check. It's the end of the week, so I won't see you until Monday, 4 p.m. sharp. You can continue to go to @EllisonReport, #Reality Check for more social media conversation there. Also check out my latest pieces in the Philadelphia Citizen and the 4WURD magazine. I want to thank Troy Wilmore has been getting it done. Always good joining him in studio at the Board of Steel. We're getting ready for the lounge, right? The lounge, yeah, with Sincere Sarita. That's coming up next here on the home of Black Talk Media. It's WURD. In the meantime, Philadelphia wants you to stay smart, stay sharp, but please, more importantly, stay safe out there. All right, have a great weekend.